Welcome, traveller of the mind. Before we begin our journey, allow the weight of the day to fall away from your shoulders, shedding like a heavy coat you no longer need to wear. Find the stillness in your breath. Inhale the cool, quiet air of the cosmos and exhale the static of the waking world. You're safe here, suspended in the velvet embrace of the night, where time is not a master, but a gentle tide, ebbing and flowing at your own rhythm. Close your eyes and let your eyelids feel heavy, pleasantly sealed by the dust of distant stars. We're about to drift to a place where history and modernity dance a slow waltz, a city of stone and glass, of rain and royalty, of secret gardens and ancient rivers. We're going to London, but we're not going to the frantic city of the day. We're visiting the London of dreams, a spectral, soothing version of the capital that exists only when the sun has dipped below the horizon and the gas lamps flicker to life. Picture yourself floating high above the British Isles, a silent observer in the mesosphere. Below you, the world is a tapestry of shadows and soft glowing ambers. You begin to descend slowly, featherlight, drifting down through layers of silver clouds. As you break through the mist, the sprawling metropolis reveals itself, not as a chaotic grid, but as a glittering constellation of lights, a galaxy grounded on the earth. You can see the curves of the streets, the dark patches of vast parks, and the shimmering ribbon of water that dissects the landscape. There is no noise here, only a deep, resonant hum, like the sound of a cello played in a cavern. You're floating toward a sanctuary of knowledge and peace, where every cobblestone has a story, and every brick holds a memory. Let your mind become as vast and open as the night sky above the city. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to analyze. These words are merely ripples in the pond of your consciousness. If you drift away into sleep, that is perfect. If you stay to wander these streets with me, that is also perfect. Just listen. Just be. Let us descend completely now, touching down softly on the cool pavement, ready to explore the soul of this ancient city. The lifeblood of this city, the very reason for its existence, is the great winding waterway that snakes through its centre. Visualize the River Thames as it appears at night, a vast moving mirror of obsidian liquid. It is not merely water, it is liquid history, a dark, heavy ribbon that has flowed here long before the first stone was laid. Imagine standing on the embankment, the air cool and damp against your cheek, watching the tide move with a powerful, silent determination. The river is tidal, breathing in and out with the moon, rising and falling by several meters twice a day, a rhythmic lung for the metropolis. As you gaze into the black depths, consider the ancient items resting in the silt beneath the surface, protected by the currents. For thousands of years, people have cast offerings into these waters, coins, weapons, trinkets, hoping for favour from forgotten gods. The river holds them all in its muddy embrace. Reflect on the surface, where the lights of the modern skyline dance in fractured pillars of gold and violet. The water distorts these lights, turning them into impressionist paintings that shift and swirl with every eddy. It is a hypnotic sight, the darkness of the natural water merging with the artificial luminescence of the city, flowing endlessly out toward the North Sea, carrying the dreams of millions toward the horizon. Following the current of the river back through the mists of time, we find the bedrock of the city's identity buried deep beneath the modern asphalt. If you could peel back the layers of the street like the pages of a heavy book, you would find the red tiles and grey stones of the Romans. This city was once Londinium, founded nearly 2,000 years ago. Picture the ghosts of Roman soldiers in their sandals and tunics, walking the perimeter of the ancient London Wall. Fragments of this wall still stand today, quiet and unassuming, tucked away in parking garages or standing silently beside office blocks, ignored by the rushing crowds but revered by the stillness of the night. Imagine touching the rough, cold surface of a stone that was placed there by a hand in the year 200 AD. The texture is gritty, weathered by centuries of rain and wind, yet unyielding. It grounds you to realize that beneath the glass skyscrapers and the fiber optic cables, the skeleton of the city is ancient, solid, and enduring. The Romans chose this spot for its strategic importance, for the bridge they could build across the Thames, and in doing so they anchored the city in a specific place in space and time, a decision that still dictates the flow of traffic and the shape of the streets today. From the solid stone of the Roman foundations, our mind's eye drifts upward, swirling into the atmospheric embrace of the air itself. There is a texture to the air in London, a legacy of the famous pea soupers, the thick enveloping fogs that once swallowed the streets whole. While the coal smoke of the Victorian era has long since cleared, the romance of the London fog remains etched in the collective dream of the city. Visualize a thick, soft blanket of white mist rolling in from the river, muffling the sounds of the world. In this fog, the sharp edges of buildings are softened, and the world becomes intimate, enclosed, and cozy. The streetlights become glowing orbs of diffused light, hovering in the grey expanse like will-o'-the-wisps, leading you deeper into relaxation. Imagine walking through this mist. You cannot see the end of the street, only the few steps in front of you. This is not frightening, it is liberating. It means you do not need to worry about the destination, only the present moment. The fog acts as a visual silence, a way for the city to close its eyes and rest. It dampens the acoustic landscape so that footsteps sound muffled and distant, and the roar of the city is reduced to a gentle white noise whisper that lulls the mind into a state of suspended animation. Through the clearing mists, a fortress emerges, dark and formidable against the skyline. We find ourselves at the Tower of London, but we're not here for the crown jewels or the stone dungeons. We're here for the guardians of the tower, the ravens. Picture these magnificent, intelligent birds, with feathers as black as a moonless midnight, and a sheen of iridescent blue and purple when they catch the light. Legend holds that if the ravens ever leave the tower, the kingdom will fall, a myth that ensures they are treated with the utmost reverence and care. Imagine the tower grounds at night, when the tourists have gone and the gates are locked. It is silent, save for the occasional shuffle of a wing, or a soft, croaking call echoing off the White Tower's walls. There are always at least 6 ravens here, living in luxury, the silent sentinels of history. Visualize a raven perched on a cold cannon barrel, its head tucked under its wing, sleeping peacefully amidst centuries of turbulent history. The bird represents a bridge between the wildness of nature and the structure of civilization. Their presence adds a layer of mystical stillness to the sight, a reminder that even in the centre of a bustling capital, the ancient rhythms of the animal kingdom hold sway, watching, waiting, and protecting the sanctity of the stone. The silence of the tower is broken only by a sound so iconic, so deep, that it is felt in the chest as much as it is heard in the ears. Across the city, standing tall above the Houses of Parliament, is the Elizabeth Tower, known to the world by the name of its great bell, Big Ben. Imagine the golden clock face glowing in the night, a beacon of amber warmth rising 96 metres into the sky. The hands of the clock are massive, moving with an imperceptible slowness, marking the passage of time with dignity and grace. Focus on the sound of the bell itself. It is not a sharp clang, but a low resonant boom, unnatural to be precise. It strikes the hour with a vibration that seems to travel through the ground, up through your feet and into your very bones. Bong, bong. The space between the strikes is profound, a heavy silence where the city holds its breath. This sound has marked the end of wars, the beginning of new years, and the passing of monarchs. To hear it is to be synchronized with the heartbeat of the nation. It is a sound of stability, a reassurance that no matter how chaotic the world may seem, time continues its steady rhythmic march, reliable and constant, watching over the sleeping city like a grandfather clock in a quiet hallway. The resonance of the great bell seeps downwards, filtering through the pavement and into the labyrinthine world beneath the surface. Here lies the London Underground, the oldest subterranean railway network in the world. But do not think of the rush hour crowds. Think of the tube as the arteries of the city, a flowing system of energy. Visualize the warm, rushing breeze that pushes through the tiled tunnels just before a train arrives, a gentle gust that smells of ozone and warm metal. There is a hypnotic rhythm to the movement of the trains. Clack, clack, whoosh. Clack, clack, whoosh. It is a mechanical lullaby that rocks millions to a state of trance every day. The map of the Underground, with its colourful intersecting lines, is an iconic piece of design that simplifies the complex geography of the city into a neat, orderly diagram. Imagine sitting in an empty carriage late at night, the rhythmic swaying of the seat soothing your body, the lights flickering slightly as you speed through the darkness of the tunnels. You're travelling through the earth, protected and carried, moving effortlessly from one borough to another without ever having to lift a foot. It is a secret world of tiles and tracks, a mesmerising loop of motion that continues deep below the sleeping streets. Emerging from the warm tunnels, we rise up into the fresh, cool air of the city's surface, finding ourselves surrounded not by concrete, but by a canopy of leaves. It is little known wonder that London is technically classified as a forest. According to the United Nations definition, the density of trees here is high enough to grant the city this lush title. Visualize this for a moment. Nearly half of the city is green and blue space. Picture Hyde Park or Hampstead Heath in the quiet of the night. The massive plane trees with their camouflage-patterned bark stand like ancient druids, their branches interlacing to form a ceiling that blocks out the city glare. The grass is cool and damp with dew, stretching out for miles, absorbing the noise and the heat of the urban environment. In these green pockets, the air is sweeter, richer with oxygen. You can smell the scent of wet earth and pine needles. Foxes creep softly through the undergrowth, reclaiming the territory under the cover of darkness. To think of London as a forest is to change your perception of it entirely. It is not a machine, but a living, breathing ecosystem, a garden that has allowed a city to grow within its branches. As you stand beneath the shelter of these great trees, you hear the first tentative drops of rain beginning to fall. Rain is not an inconvenience in this dream. It is the soundtrack of the city. London receives less rain by volume than Rome or Sydney, yet the grey, drizzly day is its signature aesthetic. Visualise the rain as a cleansing force, washing the dust from the slate roofs and the cobblestones. Listen to the sound of the rain pattering against the window of a cosy study. It is a rhythmic, percussive sound, a million tiny fingers tapping on the glass, asking to come in. The streets transform under the rain. The pavement becomes a mirror, reflecting the red taillights of buses and the white glow of street lamps in long, shimmering streaks. The air smells of petrichor, that distinct earthy scent of rain hitting dry stone. It is a smell that evokes a desire for warmth, for tea, for wool blankets. The rain grants you permission to stay indoors, to curl up, to do nothing. It creates a barrier between you and the world outside, a liquid curtain that says, "Rest now, the world is being washed clean." Through the rain-streaked glass, a distinctive shape moves slowly down the road. It is a London black cab, a vehicle that is more than a car. It is a moving library of navigation. The drivers of these cabs have mastered the knowledge, a mental map of thousands of streets and landmarks that takes years to memorise. Imagine the mind of the driver, a calm and organised catalogue of every lane, mews and avenue in the city. There is a profound sense of safety in stepping into the back of a black cab. The interior is spacious, private, a personal capsule moving through the night. The diesel engine has a distinctive throaty purr that vibrates gently through the leather seats. You're being guided by an expert, someone who knows the city better than a cartographer. You do not need to check a map. You simply state your destination and sink back into the seat, watching the city slide by through the rain-spattered window. The cab is a sanctuary of solitude in motion, a place where you can be alone with your thoughts while the complex world navigates itself around you, turning corners with precision and grace. As the cab turns a corner, the headlights sweep across a row of elegant townhouses, illuminating a relic of the Victorian age that still flickers in the modern world. There are still roughly 1,500 gas lamps burning in London, maintained by a dedicated team of lamplighters who wind the clocks and check the pilot lights. Visualize the light they cast. It is not the harsh, blue-white LED glare of the modern street lamp. It is a soft, burning orange, a living flame trapped within a glass case. The light flickers and dances, casting long, shifting shadows that seem to play tricks on the eye. It is a warm, organic glow that feels like a hearth fire suspended on a pole. Standing beneath a gas lamp in a quiet square, hearing the faint hiss of the burning gas, you are transported back in time. You can almost hear the clip-clop of horse hooves and the rustle of silk skirts. These lamps are keepers of the flame, literally and metaphorically, holding on to a slower, warmer, more romantic era. They invite you to pause, to look up at the moth circling the glass, and to bathe in the amber luminescence that softens the hard edges of the night, guiding you gently toward a deep and dreamless sleep. From the flickering warmth of those Victorian flames, let your gaze drift upward, ascending slowly from the cobbled streets until you are hovering once again above the skyline. Here, dominating the riverbank like a colossal bicycle wheel spun by a giant's hand, turns the London Eye. Imagine this great wheel not as a machine of steel and tension cables, but as a pendulum of pure observation, rotating with a slowness that defies the frantic pace of the world below. It moves so gradually, 26 centimeters per second, that it seems almost stationary, a meditation in motion. Visualize yourself inside one of the 32 ovoid capsules. The glass curves around you, sealing you in a bubble of silence, suspended between the dark waters of the Thames and the endless expanse of the star-dusted sky. As you rise to the apex, 135 meters in the air, the city spreads out like a circuit board of gold and amber. You are weightless here, detached from gravity, watching the red ribbons of tail lights and the white ribbons of headlights weaving through the arteries of the metropolis. The wheel does not stop to let passengers on or off. It merely flows, a continuous circle of life that invites you to step in and float. It is a cantilevered dream, supported from only one side, hanging over the river like a lantern held out over a dark path. In this capsule, you are the eye of the storm, the still point in a turning world, watching the universe rotate around you in a slow, majestic waltz. As the great wheel descends, depositing us gently back onto the firm earth, our path leads us inward, away from the river and into the hushed, hallowed halls of the British Museum. Leave behind the open sky for a moment and step into the great court. Visualize the ceiling above you, not the night sky, but a magnificent tessellation of glass and steel, a man-made web that captures the moonlight and scatters it across the limestone floor. It is the largest covered public square in Europe, a vast, echoing chamber of white stone that feels as sacred as any cathedral. The air here is cool and still, smelling faintly of old parchment, polished marble, and the dust of ages. Imagine walking alone through these galleries in the deep silence of the night. You're surrounded by the sleeping artifacts of human history, the Rosetta Stone, its black basalt surface etched with the codes of forgotten languages, the Elgin marbles, their white forms frozen in an eternal procession, the winged bulls of Assyria guarding gates that no longer exist. There is a profound weight to the atmosphere, a sense that millions of stories are suspended in the air, waiting to be heard. You are walking through the collective memory of the human race. It is a place where time has collapsed, where the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks and the Romans all slumber together under one glass roof. In this quietude, you realize that you are part of this long, unbroken chain, a living witness to the endurance of creativity and spirit. From the cool, intellectual stone of the museum, we seek a warmer, more intimate comfort, drifting toward the clinking sound of porcelain and the rising steam of a kettle. We find ourselves enveloped in the fragrant cloud of London's most beloved ritual, the tradition of tea. This is not merely a beverage, it is a liquid pause button, a cultural embrace that says, stop, breathe, be here. Visualize a delicate bone china cup resting in your hands, the ceramic warm against your palms, radiating a heat that seeps into your fingers and travels up your arms. Watch the steam rising from the surface of the amber liquid, curling into the air like a phantom dancer, carrying with it the scent of bergamot from Earl Grey, or the malty, earthy richness of English breakfast. There is a hypnotic beauty in the preparation. The swirl of the milk clouding the dark tea, turning it the colour of sandstone, the gentle chime of the silver spoon against the rim of the cup, a tiny bell calling you to relaxation. Whether served in the opulent drawing room of a grand hotel with tiered stands of cucumber sandwiches and scones clotted with cream, or in a chipped mug at a kitchen table while the rain lashes the window, the feeling is the same. It is a hug in a mug, a warm internal bath that soothes the nerves and settles the soul. As you take a sip, feel the warmth sliding down your throat, spreading a glow through your chest, melting away the tension of the day with every swallow. Comforted by the warmth, we wander back out into the cool night air, finding our way to the geographic heart of the city, Trafalgar Square. Here, the open space is dominated by the sound of rushing water from the two great fountains, their sprays illuminated in blue and teal, creating a shimmering curtain of mist. But we're not looking at the water, nor at the tall column of Nelson rising into the dark. We're looking at the guardians of this square, the 4 massive bronze lions that sit at the base of the monument. Visualize these beasts, calm and majestic, resting on their stone plinths. They are not roaring or prowling. They are in a state of eternal repose, their great heads resting on their paws, watching the city with heavy, lidded eyes. These are the Landseer lions cast from melted down cannons, transforming the metal of war into the art of peace. Reach out in your mind and touch the cold, smooth bronze of a lion's flank. It is solid, unyielding, a grounding force in the centre of the swirling traffic. There is a charming secret in their design. The artist, Sir Edwin Landseer, had never seen a lion's paws up close, so he modelled them on the paws of his house cat. If you look closely, they are soft, rounded, domestic, a gentle touch hidden within the grandeur. These lions are the stoic protectors of London's dreams, unflinching in the rain and the snow, anchoring the square with their heavy, silent presence. Leaving the grand square, we drift into the quieter residential streets of neighbourhoods like Bloomsbury, Chelsea and Kensington. The architecture here creates a rhythm of its own, row upon row of brick townhouses with their white pillared porches and black iron railings. But as you walk these sleeping streets, your eyes are drawn to small cerulean circles affixed to the walls. These are the blue plaques, the city's way of whispering its secrets to those who take the time to look. Imagine these blue ceramic discs as portals in time. Each one marks a building where a person of significance once lived or worked. Charles Dickens lived here. Virginia Woolf wrote here. Isaac Newton studied here. Visualize the white typography raised against the glazed blue background, shining faintly under the street lamps. They turn a simple walk into a treasure hunt of history. You're not just walking past a brick wall. You're walking past the bedroom where a symphony was composed, or the study where a scientific law was discovered. The buildings themselves seem to hum with the residual energy of their past inhabitants. It is a comforting thought to know that the layers of life in this city are acknowledged and preserved, that the past is literally written on the walls, creating a continuous narrative that links the dreamer of today with the dreamers of yesterday. The narrative of dreamers leads us inevitably to the banks of the Thames once more, to the South Bank, where a circular wooden structure stands, open to the sky. We have arrived at Shakespeare's Globe. This is not the original, but a faithful dreaming of it, reconstructed with English oak and mortise and tenon joints, holding true to the vision of the 16th century. Visualise the wooden O, a structure of timber and plaster, topped with the only thatched roof permitted in modern London. Step inside the empty theatre. The air smells of raw wood, straw, and the damp breeze coming off the river. Stand in the central yard, the pit, where the groundlings would once have gathered. Above you, the galleries rise in tiers, embracing the stage. Without the actors and the crowds, the space is profoundly spiritual. You can almost hear the echo of iambic pentameter bouncing off the oak beams, the rhythm of the heartbeat. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. The words seem to hang in the air, woven into the thatch. The open roof allows the starlight to fall directly onto the stage, illuminating the place where tragedy and comedy have danced for centuries. It is a vessel of storytelling, a wooden cradle for the imagination, resting silently by the water. From the wide, tidal Thames, we drift northwards to a hidden network of water that feels entirely different, intimate, still, and secluded. We find ourselves in Little Venice, where the Grand Union Canal and the Regent's Canal meet in a tranquil triangular pool. If the Thames is the highway, these canals are the secret garden paths of the water world. Visualize the surface of the canal smooth as black glass, undisturbed by tides or currents. Lined along the banks are the narrow boats, long and slender, painted in vibrant shades of scarlet, emerald, and midnight blue, decorated with hand-painted roses and castles. At night, the scene is incredibly cozy. Thin trails of wood smoke curl up from the tiny chimneys of the boats, smelling of burning logs and coal, hinting at the warmth of the stoves burning inside. Willow trees drape their long leafy branches down to touch the water, creating green curtains that shield the boats from the city. The pace of life here is determined by the speed of a walking horse, a legacy of the towpaths. Imagine walking softly along the water's edge, hearing the gentle lap-lap of water against the hulls and the occasional quack of a sleeping duck. It is a floating village, a slow-motion world hidden in a concrete valley, where time is measured not in minutes, but in the drifting of a leaf on the water. The quiet of the canal prepares our ears for a sonic marvel located in the heart of the City of London. We rise toward the great dome of St. Paul's Cathedral, Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece that has watched over London for 300 years. We bypass the nave and ascend the spiral stairs, higher and higher, until we step out onto the circular walkway known as the Whispering Gallery. This runs around the interior of the dome, 30 metres above the cathedral floor. The acoustics here are a phenomenon of physics and magic. Visualize the vast, cavernous space of the dome arching above and below you, painted with scenes from the life of St. Paul. The space is so large it should swallow all sound, yet the curved walls hold a secret. If you were to stand on one side of the gallery and whisper against the wall the softest, barely audible breath of words, your friend standing on the exact opposite side, 33 metres away, would hear you clearly, as if you were speaking directly into their ear. The sound clings to the curve of the wall, travelling the circumference without losing its energy. Imagine sending a message of peace around the circle, a whisper travelling the loop of the dome. In this vast, holy space, the smallest sound becomes significant. It is a reminder of the power of intimacy within the grandeur, a connection that bridges the distance in the dark. Leaving the stone embrace of the cathedral, we travel westward to the edge of the city, where the urban landscape gives way to the wild, ancient grounds of Richmond Park. This is not a manicured garden. It is a sprawling national nature reserve, a fragment of the medieval hunting grounds that has survived the encroachment of the city. As the sun begins to hint at the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and grey, a mist rises from the tall golden grasses and the ferns. Out of this mist, silent shapes begin to emerge. They are the red and fallow deer, herds that have roamed this land since 1637. Visualize a great stag standing amidst the bracken, his breath pluming in the cold morning air. His antlers are a magnificent architecture of bone, velvet-textured and strong, branching out like the ancient oaks that surround him. The deer move with a fluid, silent grace, stepping high over the fallen logs, their large, dark eyes scanning the horizon. To see them here, against the backdrop of a distant city skyline, is surreal. It feels as though you have stepped into a fairy tale, a place where the wild world still reigns supreme. The smell here is of damp earth, crushed grass, and pine resin. It is a sensory detox, a place where the frenetic energy of London dissolves into the timeless rhythms of nature. Finally, as we return from the wild parkland to the paved streets, we spot a beacon of bright, cheerful colour standing on a street corner. It is the iconic red telephone box. While the need for payphones has faded, these cast-iron kiosks remain as beloved sentinels of British identity. Visualise the specific shade of red, currant red, glossy and vibrant against the grey pavement and the stone buildings. Imagine stepping inside one of these boxes to escape a sudden shower. The heavy door closes with a satisfying solid clunk sealing you inside. The interior smells of old metal, rain, and history. The grid of small glass panes frames the world outside like a movie reel. Standing there, you're in a tiny vertical sanctuary, a private space in the middle of the public sphere. Designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, the kiosk was inspired by the tomb of Sir John Soane's wife, a strange origin for a phone booth, but one that explains its classical dome and stately proportions. It is a structure of permanence in a world of digital evanescence. Even empty, it stands as a symbol of connection, a reminder of a time when voices travelled through copper wires and a call was a physical destination. It is a bright red lighthouse on the corner, watching over the neighbourhood, offering shelter, memory, and a flash of colour to the dreaming mind. Stepping out from the shelter of that scarlet sentinel, your eyes catch a flash of the same vivid, glossy red moving gracefully through the traffic. It is the Routemaster bus, a mechanical creature of charm and nostalgia that has roamed these streets for decades. While modern buses hum with efficiency, the classic Routemaster possesses a soul, a curvaceous design that feels friendly and welcoming. Imagine climbing the winding stairs to the top deck, gripping the polished chrome rail that has been smoothed by thousands of hands before yours. You make your way to the very front seat, the most coveted spot in the city, and sink into the patterned moquette fabric. From this elevated vantage point, you are the captain of a land-bound ship, gliding above the heads of the pedestrians. Feel the gentle, rhythmic swaying of the bus as it navigates the corners. It is a rocking motion, not unlike a cradle, lulling you into a state of hypnotic observation. Raindrops streak across the panoramic window in front of you, blurring the streetlights into long, glowing comets. You're moving through the city, yet you're apart from it, encased in a warm, rumbling cocoon of safety. The engine beneath hums a low, throaty tune, a vibration that travels up through the floor and grounds you. There is no rush here, only the steady progress of the journey, passing the illuminated shop windows and the wet pavement, watching the world unroll before you like a cinematic reel projected solely for your relaxation. The bus carries us softly toward the royal heart of the metropolis, depositing us near the verdant expanse of St James's Park. Here, amidst the manicured lawns and the weeping willows that trail their fingertips in the water, lives a surprising legacy of exotic diplomacy. On the central lake, gliding with prehistoric grace, are the pelicans. These are not recent visitors. Their lineage here dates back to 1664, a gift from the Russian ambassador to King Charles II. Visualize these large, magnificent birds drifting on the glassy surface of the lake, their white feathers glowing softly in the moonlight, stark against the dark water. There is a profound stillness to the way a pelican moves, buoyant, effortless, barely creating a ripple as it paddles. Watch one as it tucks its long beak against its chest, preening its plumage with meticulous care. They are the calm aristocrats of the park, sharing the island with ducks and swans but maintaining a dignified distance. The air here smells of fresh water and damp earth, a pocket of serenity where the noise of the government buildings nearby fades into nothingness. To imagine the pelicans is to imagine a link between the courts of the czars and the courts of the kings, a living gift that has survived centuries of change, still paddling quietly on the same lake, under the same stars, undisturbed by the turning of the ages. As the night deepens and the shadows lengthen across the park, a ritual of immense antiquity is preparing to take place just a few miles downstream. We return to the formidable stone walls of the fortress we visited earlier, but this time we're here for a specific moment in time, the ceremony of the keys. Every single night, without fail, for over 700 years, the gates of the Tower of London have been locked in exactly the same way. It is the oldest military ceremony in the world, a heartbeat of discipline that has never skipped a beat, not even during the Blitz of the Second World War. Visualize the scene. It is just before 10 o'clock at night. The air is cold and heavy with the scent of stone and river damp. A single yeoman warder, dressed in a long red-trimmed coat and holding a lantern that casts a warm, flickering candlelight, emerges from the shadows. He carries the Queen's keys, heavy, iron, and ancient. He's met by a military escort, their boots striking the cobblestones with a rhythmic, percussive clack, clack, clack that echoes off the tunnel walls. Listen to the exchange that follows, the voices ringing out in the silence. Halt. Who comes there? The keys. Whose keys? Queen Elizabeth's keys. Pass, Queen Elizabeth's keys. All's well. The phrase all's well is a powerful mantra, a verbal seal of safety placed upon the night. The heavy wooden gates are pushed shut, the iron bolts slide home with a resonant thud, and the fortress is secured. It is a ritual of closure, a signal to the mind that the day is done, the gates are locked, and it is time to rest in safety. Leaving the secured fortress, we wander towards the boundary where the old city of London meets the wider metropolis. Here, marking the invisible walls of influence, stand the silver dragons. These are not the terrifying monsters of myth, but elegant heraldic guardians, cast in iron and painted in silver and red, clutching a shield with the cross of St. George. They stand on plinths in the middle of the road, silent sentinels that mark the entry into the historic financial district. Picture the moonlight catching the metallic sheen of the dragon's wing. It gleams with a cool, lunar brightness. These statues are smaller than the lions, but they possess a fierce, protective energy. They look outwards, away from the city, watching for trouble, ensuring that the streets behind them remain a sanctuary of order. There are over a dozen of these guardians scattered around the perimeter, forming a protective circle around the square mile. To pass between them is to cross a threshold, to enter a place of ancient privileges and laws. Imagine running your hand over the cool painted metal of the dragon scale. It feels solid, permanent. They are the silent custodians of the city's identity, standing rigid and proud while the traffic flows like water around their feet, eternal watchmen in a world of constant motion. The protective gaze of the dragons allows for the flourishing of quiet, precise craftsmanship within the streets they guard. We drift now into the hushed, carpeted world of Savile Row, the golden mile of tailoring. This is a street not of commerce, but of art, where the creation of a suit is a slow, meditative sculpture in cloth. Visualize a fitting room in one of these Georgian townhouses. The wood panelling is dark and rich, polished with beeswax. The lighting is soft and golden. The air smells of steam, chalk, and high-quality wool. It is a world of tactile luxury. Imagine the feeling of a heavy swatch of tweed or cashmere between your thumb and forefinger. The friction of the weave, the warmth of the fabric. The silence here is thick and respectful, broken only by the snip-snip of heavy shears cutting through cloth and the soft scratch of tailor's chalk marking a hem. There is no rush in Savile Row. A suit here takes months to create, involving thousands of hand stitches. It is the antithesis of the modern world. It is a celebration of patience, of individual attention, of measuring the body to the millimetre to create a second skin. To be here is to be cared for, to be measured and understood, wrapped in layers of cloth that have been shaped by the hands of a master who values perfection over speed. From the intimacy of the fitting room, our spirit expands, drifting westward to a building that is the very embodiment of circular grandeur, the Royal Albert Hall. Visualize the exterior of this great auditorium, a rotunda of red brick and terracotta glowing warmly under the floodlights like a massive ornate crown. But it is the interior that calls to us, a vast cavern of music and atmosphere. We float into the centre of the hall, hovering above the arena. The space is immense, an oval coliseum of velvet seats and gold railings, rising up tier after tier towards the domed roof. Look up at the ceiling. Suspended there are large fiberglass discs, shaped like mushrooms or flying saucers. These are the acoustic diffusers, hung there to tame the infamous echo that once plagued the hall. They hang in the darkness of the dome like silent planets, floating in the void. Imagine the sound of a symphony orchestra playing a slow adagio here. The music swells, filling the volume of the hall, vibrating against the wood and the velvet, wrapping every listener in a blanket of sound. The shape of the hall is a hug, a continuous curve with no sharp corners, where the energy of the audience and the performers circulates in an endless loop of connection. It is a vessel for harmony, standing stoic and round against the night sky, holding the memory of a million songs within its walls. From the enclosed grandeur of the hall, we escape into the open air, seeking higher ground. We find ourselves climbing the gentle slope of Primrose Hill. This is one of the few places in the city where the trees part and the land rises high enough to offer a clear, uninterrupted view of the horizon. The grass is cool and damp beneath your feet as you reach the summit, finding a bench inscribed with the words of William Blake. I have conversed with the spiritual sun. I saw him on Primrose Hill. Visualize the panorama spread out before you. London is a sea of lights, glittering like a fallen galaxy. You can see the spikes of the Shard, the curve of the London Eye, and the cluster of towers in the city, but they are all tiny, toy-like, silent in the distance. You're above it all, detached from the urgency of the urban sprawl. The wind blows fresher here, carrying the scent of leaves and distant rain. It is a place of perspective. The city looks peaceful from this height, a coherent whole rather than a chaotic jumble. The lights twinkle and shimmer, breathing in a slow rhythm. You are the observer on the hill, safe in the darkness of the park, watching the electric slumber of the millions below, feeling the vastness of the sky pressing down to meet the earth. Descending from the hill, we zoom in, past the streets and the buildings, to a tiny, overlooked detail hidden in the wall of a building on Cannon Street. Behind a protective iron grille resting close to the ground sits an irregular block of limestone known as the London Stone. It is unassuming, easily missed, yet it radiates a mythic gravity. Legend whispers that this stone is the heart of London, the miliarium from which the Romans measured all distances in Britain. So long as the stone of Brutus is safe, so long shall London flourish. Visualize this ancient rock, porous and grey, pitted by time and blackened by the smoke of centuries. It has survived fires, bombs, and demolitions. It is a grounding anchor. Think of the millions of feet that have walked past it, the horses, the chariots, the cars. Through it all, the stone has sat there, silent and immobile. It is the city's talisman, a heavy, solid knot that ties the modern metropolis to its deepest, foggiest past. To focus on the London Stone is to focus on stability. It is the unmoving point, the heavy paperweight that keeps the map of the city from blowing away in the wind of time. Our journey through time takes us now to the eastern edge of the city, to a place where time itself is defined. We stand at the top of a steep hill in Greenwich, at the Royal Observatory. Here, a brass line stretches across the cobblestones, and a green laser beam cuts through the night sky, pointing due north. This is the prime meridian, longitude 0. It is the starting point for every clock and map on Earth. Visualize standing with 1 foot on the left of the line and 1 foot on the right. You're straddling the hemispheres, standing in the east and the west simultaneously. The air here is clear, and the view down to the river is magnificent. But the feeling is one of cosmic alignment. This is where the world agreed to synchronize its watches. Above you, the onion dome of the observatory houses the great telescopes that once charted the stars to guide ships at sea. There is a sense of order here, a celestial geometry that organizes the chaos of the world into hours, minutes, and degrees. It is a place of balance. The laser beam slices through the darkness, a pillar of pure light, a constant reminder that no matter where you go in the world, you're connected back to this quiet hill, this line in the stone, this center of time. Resting just below the hill, in a dry dock by the river, lies the last survivor of the tea clippers, the Cutty Sark. She's a masterpiece of speed and beauty, a sailing ship that once raced across the oceans to bring tea from China and wool from Australia. Visualize her sleek, copper-sheathed hull, glowing dully in the night lights. Her masts rise high into the air, a complex spiderweb of rigging, ropes and spars that once held acres of white canvas. Now she is at rest, lifted entirely out of the water, floating on a sea of glass. Imagine walking beneath the hull, touching the cool, smooth copper plates. You can smell the teak deck, the hemp ropes, and the faint, lingering aroma of black tea leaves and salt spray. She's a sleeping giant, her racing days over, but her spirit remains. She represents the romance of the voyage, the connection between distant lands, and the reward of a safe harbour after a long journey. The wind whistles softly through the rigging, a lullaby for the ship that has stopped running. She's held safely now, cradled by the glass and the stone, a beautiful stationary monument to the dreams of travel and the peace of coming home. From the resting hull of the great tea clipper, we allow the current of the river to carry our imagination further downstream, towards the very mouth of the estuary. Here, rising from the grey waters like a line of silver giants, stands the Thames barrier. Visualize these colossal structures not as industrial machinery, but as the shining helmets of knights submerged to their shoulders, guarding the city from the swelling sea. They stretch across the width of the river, a shield of steel and concrete that glimmers under the moonlight with a futuristic, almost extraterrestrial sheen. There is a profound sense of security in their presence. These rotating gates are the city's silent protectors, designed to hold back the tide when the North Sea rises in anger. Imagine the sound of the water lapping against the stainless steel shells, a rhythmic, hollow clang that echoes over the estuary. When the barrier closes, the steel hoods rotate upwards from the riverbed, forming a solid wall against the waves. It is a masterpiece of defence, a sleeping army of engineering that ensures the millions of people upstream can dream without fear of the flood. To look at them is to see strength in repose, a promise kept in steel that the city is safe, watched over by these silver sentinels standing firm in the dark, swirling currents. Drifting back upstream, moving against the flow of the tide, we encounter a monument that predates the barrier by millennia, standing on the Victorian embankment. It is Cleopatra's Needle, an ancient Egyptian obelisk carved from red granite around 1450 BC. Visualize the journey this stone has taken, from the burning sands of Heliopolis to the damp, fog-laden banks of the Thames. It stands tall and stark, a single finger of stone pointing to the same stars that the pharaohs once worshipped. Guarding the base of this obelisk are two bronze sphinxes. If you look closely in the dreamlight, you will notice a curious detail. They are facing the wrong way, looking towards the obelisk rather than guarding it from outward threats, a Victorian era frozen in bronze. But there is a deeper texture here to be felt. Run your mind's fingers over the paws of the sphinxes and the plinth of the needle. You might feel the rough, jagged scars in the metal and stone. These are the wounds of the First World War, shrapnel damage from a bomb that fell nearby. the city chose not to repair them, leaving the scars as a testament to survival. The monument is a time traveller, bearing the hieroglyphs of ancient gods and the battle scars of modern wars, standing stoically by the river, anchoring the fleeting present to the deep, enduring past. Leaving the riverbank, we wander into the labyrinth of the city streets, seeking a place where the architecture of man has surrendered to the architecture of nature. We find ourselves at St. Dunstan in the east. Once a grand church, it was shattered by the Blitz, but instead of rebuilding the roof, the city decided to plant a garden within the ruins. Visualize stepping through the arched Gothic doorway. There is no heavy oak door to close behind you, only the open air. You're standing in the nave, but the ceiling is a canopy of leaves and stars. Vines of ivy and jasmine climb the limestone walls, weaving through the empty window frames where stained glass once fractured the light. Now, the moonlight falls unobstructed, painting the flagstones in shades of silver and moss green. It is a sanctuary of breathtaking peace. The noise of the city is baffled by the high stone walls, creating a pocket of silence where the only sounds are the rustling of the trees and the trickle of a small fountain. It is a harmonious marriage of destruction and creation, a reminder that even in the aftermath of loss, life finds a way to bloom. To sit on a wooden bench here is to sit in a secret garden cathedral, where the prayers are the whispers of the wind in the leaves. From the low green sanctuary of the ruined church, our gaze is drawn upward to a pillar of flame frozen in stone. We stand at the base of the monument to the Great Fire of London. It is a massive Doric column of Portland stone soaring 62 metres into the sky, the exact distance from this spot to the bakery on Pudding Lane where the fire of 1666 began. But tonight, do not think of the fire, think of the view from the top. Imagine climbing the 311 spiral steps. It is a hypnotic ascent, round and round, a coiling journey towards the sky. When you step out onto the viewing platform, you are greeted by the golden urn of fire that crowns the column. It does not burn with heat, but with the warm, reassuring glow of gilded copper. From this vantage point, the city is a sleeping map. You can see the geography of the streets, the curve of the river, and the patchwork of rooftops. The monument is not just a memorial to what was lost, it is a celebration of what was rebuilt. It stands as a vertical testament to resilience, a stone spike that says, "We rose again." Standing beneath the golden orb, you feel the strength of a city that has been burned to the ground and built itself back up, taller and stronger than before. Across the river, rising like a shard of crystal from the dark earth, stands a structure that defines the modern skyline, the Shard. It is a building of pure light and transparency. Visualize its form, tapering to a ragged, open point where the glass panels do not quite touch, allowing the building to breathe. It appears not as a solid object, but as a spire of caught reflections. At night, the Shard is a mirror for the mood of the city. It reflects the passing clouds, the moon, and the shifting colours of the atmosphere. Imagine yourself at the very top, in the viewing gallery, over 300 metres in the air. The glass walls are floor to ceiling, creating an illusion of total suspension. You're floating in the ether. The trains moving on the tracks below look like microscopic pulses of light. The river is a dark vein of ink. The silence at this altitude is absolute. You are above the weather, above the noise, encased in a cool crystalline shell. It is a place of clarity, a jagged diamond that pierces the veil of the night, offering a perspective so vast that your personal worries become invisible specks on the landscape below. Descending from the crystal heights, we seek a different kind of quiet, a grounded, brutalist peace found within the concrete fortress of the Barbican estate. This is a city within a city, a complex of rough-hewn concrete towers and walkways that rose from the rubble of the war. But hidden within this fortress is a secret jewel, the Barbican Conservatory. Visualize entering this glass-bound tropical forest, encased in concrete. The air here is thick, warm and humid, smelling of damp soil and chlorophyll. It is a startling contrast to the cool London night. Monstera leaves as large as shields hang over the concrete balconies. Cacti and succulents cling to the rough-textured walls. There is a pond where koi carp, flashes of orange and gold, glide beneath the surface of dark water. The architecture is severe and strong, but the plants have softened it, draping their green limbs over the grey stone. It is a retro-futuristic dream, a vision of how nature and human habitats might coexist. The silence is heavy and comforting, muffled by the density of the foliage. Here, protected by the brutalist walls, you can breathe in the oxygen-rich air of a jungle, safe in the heart of the concrete metropolis. Emerging from the concrete, we travel to a small, unassuming garden tucked away near St. Paul's Cathedral. This is Postman's Park, a place of profound emotional resonance. It is leafy and quiet, filled with ferns and plane trees, but the heart of the park is the Watts Memorial to heroic self-sacrifice. Beneath a long wooden shelter, a wall is lined with ceramic tiles, each one commemorating an ordinary person who died saving the life of another. Visualize the soft, glazed surface of these tiles, glowing faintly in the lamplight. The inscriptions are simple and heartbreakingly beautiful. Alice Ayres, daughter of a bricklayer's labourer, who by intrepid conduct saved 3 children from a burning house. William Donald of Bayswater, who drowned in the creek trying to save a lad from a dangerous entanglement of weeds. Read the names slowly in your mind. There is no sadness here, only a deep, abiding love. This is a library of bravery, a testament to the goodness of the human spirit. The park feels like hallowed ground, not religious, but humanist. It is a place to sit on a bench and feel a connection to the quiet heroes of the past, letting their courage wrap around you like a warm blanket, reminding you that love and sacrifice are the truest foundations of the city. From the ceramic tiles of bravery, we move to a building that celebrates the beauty of timber and craft. We find ourselves standing before the magnificent Tudor Revival facade of Liberty London on Great Marlborough Street. But this is not just a department store, it is a ship on dry land. The timbers that form its iconic black and white structure were sourced from the disassembled hulls of 2 Royal Navy ships, the HMS Impregnable and the HMS Hindustan. Walk through the wooden archway and breathe in the scent. It is a unique perfume of old wood, lavender and exotic spices, a sensory signature that has lingered for a century. As you walk across the floor, listen to the gentle creak of the floorboards, the song of the ship's timber still flexing and settling. Look up at the central atrium, where light filters down from a glass dome, illuminating the galleries of carved wood. The store is a treasure chest, filled with the famous Liberty prints, fabrics of intricate floral patterns in peacock's blues, ruby reds, and emerald greens. The building feels alive, organic. It holds the memory of the ocean in its beams and the memory of the spice trade in its wares. It is a cosy, creaking, beautiful vessel that invites you to drift through its halls, touching the silks and the velvets, wrapped in the warmth of history and craftsmanship. Leaving the wooden warmth, we travel west to the botanical kingdom of Kew Gardens. In the centre of this vast green expanse glows a Victorian cathedral of glass and iron, the Palm House. Imagine standing outside it, watching the curved glass panes reflect the moonlight like a giant glowing bubble resting on the grass. Step inside. The temperature rises instantly, enveloping you in a tropical embrace. The air is misty, filled with the moisture of 1,000 breathing plants. Condensation beads on the iron pillars and trickles down the glass. You're surrounded by the giants of the plant world, palms that touch the roof, cycads that have existed since the time of the dinosaurs, ferns that unfurl like green violins. The smell is intoxicatingly green, a mixture of wet earth, decomposing leaves, and the sweet, heavy scent of exotic nectar. It is a womb of life, a glass ark that protects the green heritage of the world. Walking the iron grating of the upper walkway, looking down into the canopy of leaves, you feel entirely removed from the city, suspended in a humid, verdant dream of the equator, safe within the delicate shell of Victorian engineering. Our journey brings us back to the river for one final crossing in this sequence. We stand before the Albert Bridge, often called the Trembling Lady, because of its tendency to vibrate under the footsteps of marching soldiers, but tonight it is still. It is the most romantic of London's bridges, painted in soft shades of pastel pink, blue and green, colours chosen to improve visibility in the fog but which give it the appearance of a wedding cake decoration. Visualise the bridge at night, illuminated by 4,000 low-voltage bulbs. They trace the suspension cables like strings of fairy lights, creating a sparkling lattice against the dark sky. The reflection of these lights in the Thames below creates a shimmering pathway of gold and white on the water. Walking across the timber deck, you can feel a gentle, almost imperceptible bounce, a reminder of the bridge's flexibility and grace. It connects Chelsea to Battersea with a sense of whimsy and lightness. It is not a bridge of heavy stone or industrial steel, but a bridge of light and air, a delicate crossing that invites you to leave your worries on one bank and cross over to the other, guided by the twinkling lights that mirror the stars above. Following the gentle vibration of the bridge's fairy lights, our gaze drifts along the riverbank to a structure of immense brooding majesty. Rising from the south bank like a cathedral of the industrial age is the Battersea Power Station. Visualise the sheer scale of this brick leviathan. It is one of the largest brick buildings in Europe, constructed from over 6 million bricks, each one laid by a human hand, creating a mountain of fired clay against the skyline. It stands as a monument to Art Deco grandeur, its 4 iconic white chimneys piercing the sky like the columns of a modern temple. In the dreamlight, the chimneys do not belch smoke. Instead, they stand clean and stark, glowing with a soft pearlescent luminescence. The building itself is a study in power at rest. The fluted brickwork and the strong vertical lines draw the eye upward, celebrating the strength of structure. Imagine the interior, once a cavern of fire and steam, now a vast, echoing hall of commerce and leisure, yet the soul of the building remains heavy and grounded. It reflects perfectly in the dark Thames below, a double image of strength. To look upon it is to feel the weight of history anchored firmly to the earth, a giant that has retired from its labour to stand watch over the river, solid, immovable, and breathtaking in its geometric perfection. From the towering heights of the brick cathedral, we sink slowly downwards, below the surface of the city, descending into a world of subterranean glitter. Deep beneath Chancery Lane, protected by walls of steel and iron, lie the London silver vaults. Imagine passing through a massive safe door, 2 feet thick, swinging open on silent, well-oiled hinges to reveal a hidden corridor of radiance. You're 40 feet underground, in a place where the sun never shines, yet it is one of the brightest places in the city. The vaults are a honeycomb of strong rooms, each one filled with gleaming silver. Visualize the shelves lined with tea sets, candelabras, trophies, and trays, all polished to a mirror finish. The light here bounces infinitely, reflecting off a million curves of sterling silver. It is a quiet, cool world, insulated from the rumble of the traffic above. The air smells faintly of metal polish and velvet. Walking through these corridors feels like exploring a treasure cave from a fairy tale, a secret hoard where every object sings with the clarity of pure metal. It is a place of stillness and reflection, where the chaotic colours of the world are reduced to the pure, soothing spectrum of white and grey, shining in the eternal electric twilight. Emerging from the cool, metallic depths, we find ourselves drawn to the warm amber glow of a covered street in the heart of the financial district. We've arrived at Leadenhall Market. This is not a market of shouting traders, but a Victorian arcade of exquisite beauty. Visualise the roof structure above you, a soaring canopy of glass and wrought iron, painted in deep, rich shades of maroon, cream, and green. The floor beneath your feet is cobbled, the stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. The acoustics here are unique. The enclosed space catches the sound of your own breathing and amplifies it gently, creating an intimate atmosphere despite the grandeur. Look at the shop fronts, with their gold leaf lettering and ornate timber frames. It feels like a film set, a preserved slice of the 19th century that has refused to fade. At night, when the shops are closed and the crowds have dispersed, the market takes on a magical, suspended quality. The hanging lanterns cast warm pools of yellow light on the cobblestones, and the intricate ironwork of the roof casts lace-like shadows on the walls. It is a place to walk slowly, looking up, admiring the craftsmanship of an era that believed even a marketplace should be a palace of art and colour. From the public grandeur of the market, we drift into the intimate sensory embrace of a private home that is not quite of this time. Tucked away in Spitalfields is a house on Folgate Street, known as Dennis Sever's house. This is a still-life drama, a home created to feel as though an 18th century family has just stepped out of the room moments before you arrived. Visualize pushing open the front door and stepping into the candlelight. There is no electricity here. The house is illuminated by the soft, flickering flames of fire and wax. The air is thick with scents, the smell of oranges stuck with cloves, wood smoke, lavender, and old linen. You walk through the rooms in silence, observing the details of a life interrupted, a half-eaten piece of toast on a plate, a glass of wine with a lipstick stain, a chair pushed back from the table. You can hear the faint ambient sounds of the past, the creak of floorboards upstairs, the distant rumble of a horse-drawn carriage, the ticking of a grandfather clock. It is a sensory hallucination, a place where the barrier between the present and the past is porous. You are a ghost visiting the living, or perhaps the living visiting the ghosts. The house wraps you in a blanket of nostalgia, inviting you to suspend your disbelief and rest in the warm, cluttered comfort of a bygone century. Leaving the intimate shadows of the candlelit house, we travel to a sanctuary of knowledge, a place where the silence is vast and revered. We stand before the British Library, but we're not looking at the red brick exterior. We're inside, standing at the foot of the King's Library Tower. Visualize a 6-story glass column rising through the centre of the building, housing the book collection of King George III. Thousands of leather-bound volumes with spines of gold, red and green are stacked in neat, endless rows behind the glass. It is a visible core of wisdom, a spine of knowledge that holds the building up. The atmosphere here is one of hushed concentration. The air is climate-controlled, cool and crisp, carrying the distinct vanilla-like scent of aging paper and lignin. In the treasures gallery nearby rests the Magna Carta, written on sheepskin parchment in the year 1215. Imagine the texture of that document. The ink faded to brown, the seal of the king still attached. It is a grounding thought that words written 800 years ago are still here, protected and safe. The library is a temple to the endurance of thought, a place where the noise of the world is filtered out, leaving only the quiet hum of minds connecting with words across the centuries. From the modern temple of books, we drift to an Edwardian cathedral of travel and literature. We find ourselves in the Marylebone neighbourhood, stepping through the oak doors of Daunt Books. This is often called the most beautiful bookshop in the world, and as you enter, you understand why. The focal point is the long main gallery. Visualise the long, polished oak balconies that run down either side of the room, lined with dark wooden shelves. At the far end, a magnificent arched window features stained glass, and above, a vaulted skylight floods the space with soft, natural light during the day, or reflects the warm glow of the green-shaded reading lamps at night. The books here are arranged not by genre, but by country, a poetic organisation that invites you to travel the world shelf by shelf. The floor is laid with herringbone parquet that creaks softly, a comforting sound that emphasises the quiet. There is a sense of order and symmetry here that calms the mind. It is a study in brown and gold, a warm woody womb where stories from every corner of the globe rest side by side, waiting for a hand to pull them down. The theme of travel takes us from the wooden shelves to a hidden pocket of the Orient, concealed within the leafy borders of Holland Park. We've arrived at the Kyoto Garden. It is a meticulous recreation of a Japanese landscape, a gift from the city of Kyoto to London. As you step through the gate, the chaotic energy of the capital vanishes, replaced by the principles of Zen. Visualize the tiered waterfalls, where water tumbles over carefully placed rocks with a melodic splashing sound that washes away stress. The pond at the bottom is still and deep, home to large, slow-moving koi carp. Watch their flashes of orange, white and calico as they glide through the dark water, their movements languid and purposeful. Stone lanterns are positioned among the Japanese maples, whose leaves turn a fiery crimson in the autumn. Occasionally, a peacock wanders across the path, its iridescent blue neck catching the light, a living jewel in this green setting. The garden is designed for contemplation. Every stone, every fern, every drop of water is placed to create harmony. It is a space to breathe, to watch the water flow, and to find a centre of gravity in the natural world. From the manicured perfection of Japan, we move to a secret garden that is wilder, warmer, and steeped in the ancient art of healing. Hidden behind high brick walls near the river is the Chelsea Physic Garden. Founded in 1673, it is the oldest botanical garden in London, originally established by the Worshipful Society of Apothecaries. The high walls create a unique microclimate here, trapping the warmth of the sun and allowing rare and exotic plants to thrive. The air is heavy with the medicinal scent of herbs, rosemary, sage, lavender, and darker, muskier notes of valerian and belladonna. Visualize the neat rectangular beds, labelled with the Latin names of the plants and their healing properties. It is a living library of medicine. As you walk the gravel paths, you're walking through the history of healing, surrounded by the very roots and leaves that have cured ailments for centuries. There is a profound sense of care here. The garden feels like a nurturing grandmother, offering up her secrets for the well-being of the visitor. The soil is rich and dark, the plants are lush, and the atmosphere is one of quiet, vegetative growth, a slow, green pulse of life behind the brick walls. Leaving the enclosed garden, we seek the charm of the small scale, wandering into the cobblestone world of a London mews. These narrow streets were originally built as stables for the grand houses behind them, but today they are the quietest, most picturesque lanes in the city. Visualise turning off a busy main road and stepping onto the uneven, rounded cobblestones of a mews. The sound of traffic disappears instantly, blocked by the rows of buildings. The houses are small, often only 2 stories high, painted in pastel shades of cream, pink, and baby blue. Garage doors, once for carriages, are now painted in glossy blacks and greens. Window boxes overflow with geraniums and climbing roses that frame the doors. There is a village-like quality to a mews. Cats sleep on the doorsteps and neighbours stop to talk. The scale is human, cosy, and manageable. You feel like a giant walking through a dollhouse world. The lack of sidewalks means you walk down the centre of the lane, claiming the space for yourself. It is a hidden parallel dimension, a quiet domestic ribbon of peace running behind the grand facades of the city. Our path leads us north now, to the wild heathland heights of Hampstead, and specifically to the reflective tranquility of the Hampstead bathing ponds. These are natural freshwater swimming ponds, surrounded by weeping willows and tall reeds, looking more like a rural lake than a city pool. Visualise the water in the early morning mist. It is dark, silken and cool. Ducks and moorhens paddle softly at the edges, leaving V-shaped wakes in the glass-like surface. There is a brave and beautiful tradition here of swimming year-round, even in the depths of winter. Imagine the sensation of slipping into the cold water, the initial shock that clears the mind of all clutter, followed by the numbness, and then the glowing warmth of circulation returning. It is an immersion in nature. You are floating in rain-fed water, surrounded by mud and trees, with the sky open above you. It is a primal, grounding experience, washing away the artificiality of the urban world and reconnecting the body with the raw, cold, invigorating element of water. The silence is broken only by the splash of a swimmer or the rustle of the wind in the trees, a natural lullaby for the weary soul. Drying off from the cool, dark waters of the bathing ponds, we wander deeper into the heath, seeking a place where the untamed wildness of the woods meets the structured dream of an Edwardian eccentric. We find ourselves at the hill garden and pergola. Hidden away from the main paths, this is a secret hanging garden, raised above the ground on a series of brick arches. Visualize walking along the long stone-flagged terrace as the sun begins to set. The structure is overgrown with wisteria and jasmine, their vines twisting around the stone columns like the handwriting of nature. It feels like the ruins of a forgotten palace, left to the mercy of the forest. The air here is still and fragrant, filled with the scent of old stone and blooming climbers. As you walk the elevated path, you are level with the tree canopy, looking out over the sprawling heathland. The sunlight filters through the leaves, dappling the floor in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. It is a place of melancholic beauty, a faded glory that invites you to slow your pace and breathe in the atmosphere of a secret garden that time has gently touched, but not destroyed, preserving it in a state of eternal, romantic decay. From the hanging gardens, our path leads us to a resting place of profound Gothic beauty, Highgate Cemetery. This is not a frightening place. It is a Victorian Valhalla, a nature reserve for the departed. Visualize the Circle of Lebanon, a ring of tombs built around the roots of a massive ancient cedar of Lebanon tree. The atmosphere is one of heavy green silence. The tombs are grand, intricate stone houses for the soul, covered in a thick blanket of velvety moss and ivy. Nature is slowly reclaiming the stone here. Tree roots curve around the marble angels, and ferns sprout from the cracks in the mausoleums. It is a partnership between the stone and the forest. The air is cool and oxygen-rich, filtered by thousands of trees. As you walk the winding, overgrown paths, you feel a deep sense of peace. The noise of the living city is entirely absent, replaced by the chirping of birds and the rustle of squirrels. It is a city of sleep, where the Victorian great and good rest under a canopy of green, guarded by stone lions and weeping angels that watch over the silence with unblinking eyes. Emerging from the leafy silence of the cemetery, we travel south towards the bustling railway lands, but we stop at a curious, quiet corner of St Pancras Old Church. Here stands a singular testament to the persistence of life, the hardy tree. An ash tree hundreds of years old grows from the centre of a mass of gravestones. Visualize the scene, hundreds of weathered headstones, stacked closely together in tight concentric circles around the trunk of the tree. The roots of the ash have grown over and between the stones, binding them together in a wooden embrace. It is a sculpture made by time and biology. The stones, grey and worn, lean into the tree as if for support, while the tree draws strength from the history beneath it. It is a visual meditation on connection. The roots weave through the past, lifting the tree towards the sky. Standing before it, you sense the slow, powerful pulse of the earth, a rhythm that outlasts stone and bone, a living monument that holds the memories of thousands in its tangled wooden arms. A short walk from the quiet churchyard brings us to a cathedral of a different kind, a cathedral of steam and travel. We stand inside the great shed of St Pancras International Station, look up. Far above your head stretches the Barlow Shed, a single vast arch of blue glass and iron that was once the largest enclosed space in the world. The light here is extraordinary. During the day, the skies filtered through the blue glazing, casting a cool aquatic serenity over the platforms. At night, the iron ribs of the roof are illuminated, looking like the skeleton of a giant whale protecting the trains below. Listen to the acoustics. The announcements and the hiss of the Eurostar trains echo softly in the vast space, sounding distant and dreamlike. The air smells faintly of coffee and ozone. There is a romance to this station, a sense of beginnings and endings. The red brick walls warm the space, contrasting with the cool blue of the roof. It is a place of transit, but it asks you to pause and look up, to admire the sheer audacity of the engineers who built a glass sky to shelter the traveller from the rain. Attached to the station is a building of such intricate beauty it resembles a fairy tale castle, the St. Pancras Renaissance Hotel. We drift through the revolving doors and find ourselves at the foot of the grand staircase. This is not merely a way to get from one floor to another, it is a theatrical masterpiece of Victorian Gothic design. Visualize the carpet, a deep, rich crimson patterned with gold fleur-de-lis, winding its way up the spiral. The banisters are wrought iron, twisting and turning like vines. Look up through the central well of the staircase to the ceiling, 3 stories above, where a celestial landscape is painted in blue and gold stars. The walls are lined with a wallpaper of heavy embossed fleur-de-lis, glowing warmly in the electric light. As you ascend, the steps are wide and shallow, designed for ladies in hoop skirts to glide rather than climb. The smell is of beeswax polish and expensive perfume. It is a dizzying, beautiful spiral that draws the eye upward, a journey through colour and texture that feels like climbing inside a jewel box. Leaving the grandeur of the station, we seek a humbler yet equally poignant texture of history. We wander to the Foundling Museum in Bloomsbury, a place dedicated to the history of the UK's first children's charity. But we are here to visualise a specific heartbreaking collection, the tokens. In the 18th century, mothers leaving their babies at the hospital, often with no hope of seeing them again, would leave a small object to identify the child if they ever returned. Visualise these tiny items displayed in the quiet glass cases. A thimble, a bent coin, a hazelnut drilled with a hole and tied with a ribbon, a padlock, a playing card. These are not treasures of gold, but treasures of emotion. Each one was warm in a mother's hand before being left behind. They are small, tactile anchors of love and desperation. The silence in this room is heavy with unvoiced feelings. Seeing them, you feel a deep, empathetic connection to the past, a realization that love is often found in the smallest, most ordinary things. They are tiny sparks of humanity, preserved in the quiet amber of the museum, glowing with an inner emotional light. Stepping out into the London streets, we notice a distinctive small green structure sitting on the edge of the road. It looks like a garden shed or a gingerbread house, painted in a specific shade of Buckingham Paradise green. This is a cabman's shelter. There are only 13 of these left in the city, survivors from a time when horse-drawn carriage drivers needed a warm place to rest. Visualise the steam rising from the small serving hatch. These huts are tiny, barely the size of a car, yet they contain a kitchen and seating for a dozen drivers. They're exclusive clubs. Only those with the knowledge can enter, but the aroma of bacon sandwiches and strong tea wafts out to the street, inviting you to imagine the coziness inside. They are islands of warmth in the middle of the traffic. Rain lashes against the green timber walls, but inside the drivers are dry, swapping stories, drinking from heavy ceramic mugs. The shelter is a symbol of the city's care for its workers, a tiny wooden sanctuary that has stood on the same spot for a century, offering a respite from the cold and the rain. From the humble shelter, we drift towards the river and into the legal heart of London. We pass through a modest archway and enter the hidden world of the Temple. This is the district of lawyers, a private enclave of courtyards and gardens that feels utterly removed from the modern city. Visualise the round, stone structure of the Temple Church, built by the Knights Templar in the 12th century. It is one of the few round churches in the country, designed to mimic the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Step inside the circular nave. On the floor, lying in eternal rest, are the marble effigies of 9 medieval knights. They are not raised on plinths but lie directly on the floor, their stone swords by their sides, their shields covering their bodies. The stone is worn smooth and dark by time. The silence here is ancient and heavy. You're standing in a circle of history, surrounded by the sleeping forms of crusaders. The light filters down from the high windows, casting long shadows across the effigies. It is a place where the code of chivalry sleeps in stone, protected by the thick walls of the church, immune to the passing of centuries. Just across the road from the sleeping knights stands a Gothic palace of law, the royal courts of justice. We drift through the heavy iron gates and into the great hall. It is a space of cathedral-like proportions, paved with a mosaic of stone tiles that click-clack underfoot. Visualize the ceiling, a soaring canopy of stone arches that rise high above, disappearing into the shadows. The light here is diffuse and grey, filtering through high, pointed windows. The air is cool and smells of old paper, dust and stone. Barristers in black gowns and white horsehair wigs glide silently across the floor, looking like ghosts of a bygone era. They speak in hushed tones, their voices swallowed by the vastness of the hall. There is a solemnity here, a weight of seriousness. It is a place of decisions, of justice, of order. The architecture is designed to make you feel small, to remind you of the majesty of the law. Standing in the centre of the hall, you feel grounded, surrounded by the cool, impartial stone that has witnessed a million judgments. Finally, we drift down to the edge of the Thames, to the Victoria Embankment Gardens. Tucked away at the back of the garden, far from the water, stands a lonely, beautiful stone arch, the York Watergate. It is a relic of a time when the river was the main highway of London. Visualise this gate in the 17th century. The water of the Thames lapping against its steps, boats tying up to its iron rings. Now, due to the construction of the embankment, the river has receded 100 yards away, leaving the gate stranded on dry land. It is a water gate without water. The stone is weathered, covered in lichen, crumbling gently. It stands as a marker of change, a ghost of the river's old edge. It is surrounded now by flower beds and manicured lawns, a piece of aquatic architecture resting in a garden. To sit on the bench nearby is to contemplate the shifting nature of the city, how the land grows and the water retreats, leaving behind beautiful, silent markers of where the tide once turned. The gate waits patiently, a door to a river that no longer knocks, sleeping peacefully in the green embrace of the garden. Leaving the stranded grandeur of the Watergate, we turn our backs to the river and drift a short distance inland, finding ourselves on the Strand. Here, amidst the flow of modern traffic, exists a small, elegant anomaly of navigation known as Savoy Court. It is the only street in the United Kingdom where vehicles are required by law to drive on the right-hand side. Visualise the entrance to the famous Savoy Hotel. The driveway is a tight U-shaped turn, paved with smooth, pale stones that reflect the glow of the entrance lights. Imagine the ghosts of Edwardian hackney carriages and sleek Rolls-Royces gliding into this space, making that wide, sweeping turn on the wrong side of the road. This curiosity exists for a gentlemanly reason, so that the driver could reach back and open the passenger door for the lady without walking around the car, allowing her to step directly onto the pavement. The air here feels thick with luxury and old-world etiquette. Above the entrance stands a stainless steel statue of Count Peter of Savoy, gleaming in the night. The facade is Art Deco, a style of sleek lines and metallic elegance. Watch the spinning glass doors of the hotel lobby. They are like portals to a gilded age. The court itself is a small theatre of arrival, a place where the rules of the road bend to accommodate the rules of grace, creating a tiny reversed island of logic in the flowing river of the city streets. Just a few steps away from the hotel's glittering court lies the vast neoclassical quadrangle of Somerset House. Once a palace for queens and later the home of the Navy Board, it is now a sanctuary of art and open space. But it is the courtyard that calls to our dreaming mind. Visualise the expansive granite plaza surrounded on four sides by the harmonious honey-coloured stone of the Georgian wings. In the centre of this square, 55 fountains spring from the ground. At night, the water jets are illuminated, dancing in rhythmic columns of light and liquid. They rise and fall in a choreographed sequence, sometimes shooting high into the air with a jubilant whoosh, other times bubbling low like a bubbling spring. There is no pool to contain them. The water rises directly from the stones and disappears back into the earth, leaving the surface wet and shining like a dark mirror. The sound is mesmerizing, a chorus of splashing and hissing that fills the enclosed square, bouncing off the classical walls. In the winter, this space transforms into an ice rink, but even without the ice, the stone itself feels cool and slippery to the mind's eye. It is a place of grand symmetry, where the chaotic energy of the water is contained by the strict, elegant geometry of the architecture, offering a hypnotic visual rhythm that pulses with the heartbeat of the night. Hidden deep within the tangled alleys off the Strand, down a nondescript path called Strand Lane, lies a secret that is often missed by the waking world. We descend a few steps to peer through a dusty window into the past, discovering the Roman bath. Whether it is truly Roman or a Tudor reimagining is a debate for historians, but in the dream, we focus on the sensation of the water itself. Visualize a sunken rectangular pool, lined with old red bricks and rounded stones. The water here is spring-fed, rising from a natural source deep within the London clay. It is shockingly cold, clear, and dark, roughly 4 feet deep. For centuries, people believed in the curative power of this icy plunge. Imagine the silence of this subterranean chamber. It is damp and smells of wet stone, moss, and the mineral tang of the earth. The light is dim, casting long shadows across the rippling surface. It is a cistern of secrets, a hidden reservoir of history that sits quietly beneath the bustling offices and shops. To look into its depths is to look into the city's subconscious, a cold, clear eye staring up from the ground, fed by waters that have flowed since before the city had a name. Emerging from the damp alley, we move back to the main thoroughfare and find a narrow, elegant doorway guarded by a golden lion and 2 figures of Chinese men. This is the entrance to Twinings, the oldest tea shop in London, which has stood on this spot since 1706. The doorway is slender, almost like a tunnel, leading you away from the noise of the street and into a long, wood-panelled corridor of aroma. Visualize the air inside. It is not just air, it is a complex perfume of dried leaves, the smokiness of Lapsang Souchong, the floral high notes of Darjeeling, the bergamot of Earl Grey. The shop is long and narrow, lined with wooden shelves that hold caddies and jars of every shape and size. The floorboards are polished by 300 years of customers seeking comfort in a cup. At the back of the shop is a small museum, but the true history is in the smell. It is a dry, warm, comforting scent that triggers an immediate physical relaxation. It speaks of hearth fires, of rainy afternoons, of the ritual of boiling water. The golden lion above the door stands as a guardian of this ritual, a symbol of the trade that connected London to the misty hills of the east, bringing back the leaves that would become the nation's liquid solace. From the scent of tea, we wander north into the labyrinth of legal London, turning into a small silent square called Guff Square. In the centre stands a handsome red brick house, the home of the great wordsmith Samuel Johnson. We drift up the creaking wooden stairs, past the parlour and the bedrooms, climbing all the way to the attic. This is the garret, a long open room with heavy timber beams and sloping ceilings. It was here, in this dusty, sun-drenched space, that Johnson compiled his Dictionary of the English Language. Visualise the atmosphere of intense, quiet industry. The air is filled with floating dust motes, dancing in the shafts of light that pierce the dormer windows. You can almost hear the scratch of a quill pen on parchment, the rustle of paper, the shifting of a heavy book. This room is the birthplace of definitions. Every word we use to describe our dreams, our fears, and our hopes was weighed and measured in this space. The room feels heavy with intellect but light with spirit. It is a sanctuary of language, a place where the chaos of human speech was organised into alphabetical order. Standing in the silence of the attic, you feel a reverence for the power of words, the building blocks of the story we're weaving right now. In the courtyard outside the house, sitting on a plinth at waist height, sits a small bronze statue that adds a touch of warmth to the intellectual history. It is a sculpture of a cat, sitting atop a dictionary, with a half-eaten oyster shell at his feet. This is Hodge, Dr. Johnson's beloved companion. Visualize the texture of the bronze fur. It is cold to the touch, but smoothed by the hands of passing literary pilgrims who pet him for luck. Johnson famously bought oysters for Hodge, a luxury in those days, treating the animal with a respect that baffled his contemporaries. "I shall not forget you, Hodge," he wrote. The statue captures the cat in a moment of satisfaction, gazing out at the square with typical feline indifference. It is a grounding image, a reminder that even great minds need the comforting purr of a friend. The oyster shell is a tiny detail of domestic love frozen in time. To see Hodge is to remember the soft, quiet moments of companionship that underpin a life of work, the small creature purring on the desk while the great dictionary was being written. Leaving the square, we dive into a narrow, dark alleyway off Fleet Street to find a pub that feels less like a building and more like a cave carved from wood and time. This is Ye Old Cheshire Cheese. Rebuilt shortly after the Great Fire of 1666, it has hosted Dickens, Twain and Johnson. Visualize stepping inside. The light is incredibly low, filtered through small grimy windows and cast by amber lanterns. The walls are panelled in wood that has turned black with centuries of tobacco smoke and coal dust. The floor is covered in sawdust, which muffles your footsteps, creating a soft, shuffling sound as you move. The air smells of roasted malt, old timber, and a faint, pleasant dampness. The pub is a warren of small rooms, narrow staircases, and cosy nooks. You have to duck your head to enter the cellars, which were once part of a 13th century monastery. It is a place of positive gloom, a cosy darkness that wraps around you like a heavy wool coat. In the corner, for decades, lived a parrot named Polly, who would mimic the customers. Though she is gone, the memory of her squawk lingers in the rafters. It is the ultimate hiding place, a burrow where the world outside ceases to exist, leaving only the warmth of the fire and the murmur of quiet conversation. From the dark wooden burrow, we look up towards the sky to see a structure of blinding white grace. Rising from the ashes of the Great Fire, designed by Christopher Wren, is the steeple of St. Bride's Church. It is a madrigal in stone, a series of diminishing octagonal tiers stacked one atop the other, climbing 226 feet into the air. Visualize the silhouette of this spire against a moonlit sky. It looks strangely familiar. Legend tells us that a local baker, William Rich, whose shop was on Ludgate Hill, looked up at this tiered spire and found the inspiration for the design of his wedding cakes. Since then, the white layered shape of St. Bride's has been replicated in icing and sponge on millions of tables around the world. Look at the delicate stonework, the open arches that let the wind pass through, the lightness of the structure. It does not look like heavy masonry. It looks like lace, or indeed like sugar. It is a beacon of celebration, a towering symbol of union and sweetness standing tall above the newspaper offices of Fleet Street. To gaze at it is to feel a sense of lightness and elevation, a spiritual geometry that points endlessly upward. As we walk along the street near St. Bride's, we pause at a heavy iron grate set into the pavement near the junction of Farringdon Street. If you listen very closely, holding your breath and blocking out the hum of the city, you can hear a low, gurgling sound coming from deep beneath the earth. This is the River Fleet. Once a broad, flowing river that boats could navigate, it was eventually covered over, bricked up, and turned into a subterranean channel. But it is not dead. It is merely buried. Visualize the dark water rushing through the Victorian brick tunnels 20 feet below your boots. It is a captive force of nature, flowing from the heights of Hampstead down to the Thames. The The sound is a constant low-frequency murmur, a secret conversation between the water and the pipes. Hearing it grounds you in the geography of the city. You realise that the streets are merely a crust over a liquid world. The fleet is the city's subconscious stream, carrying the rain and the memories of the north down to the sea, unseen but ever present. A ghost river singing in the dark. The sound of the buried river fades as we move towards the great seat of justice, the central criminal court, known universally as the Old Bailey. But we're not entering the courtrooms. We are floating up to the very dome of the building to gaze at the golden figure that stands atop it. This is the statue of Lady Justice. Visualize her form, cast in bronze and covered in gold leaf, shining brilliantly against the grey London clouds or the black night sky. She stands 12 feet tall, holding a sword in one hand and the scales of justice in the other. But look closer at her face. Unlike most depictions of justice around the world, this lady is not blindfolded. She stares wide-eyed across the rooftops, her gaze fixed and unwavering. She represents a justice that is not blind to the facts, but one that sees all clearly and without prejudice. The gold acts as a beacon, catching the first rays of the rising sun and the last rays of the setting sun. She is the watcher on the roof, the golden guardian of truth. Standing high above the streets where history is written, she offers a sense of ultimate balance, a promise that amidst the chaos of human life, there is a golden, unblinking standard of fairness watching over the sleeping city. From that golden vantage point of the unblinking guardian, we allow our spirit to descend slowly, gliding down from the high rooftops into the intricate shadowed warren of streets that form the ancient district of Smithfield. Here, nestled away from the modern glass and steel, we find a survivor of the ages, the Church of St. Bartholomew the Great. To step through its Tudor gatehouse is to step out of London entirely and into a film set of the medieval world. Visualize the interior of this Norman sanctuary. It is a place of shadows and positive gloom, where the light struggles to penetrate the thick rounded arches of stone. The atmosphere is heavy, not with oppression, but with a profound, comforting density. The air is cool and smells of centuries of incense, damp limestone and beeswax candles. Run your eyes over the checkerboard floor, the black and white tiles stretching out into the dimness. This is the oldest parish church in London, a place that has witnessed the plague, the fire and the Reformation, yet remains stubbornly, beautifully intact. Imagine the texture of the stone pillars. They're rough, grey and massive, built to hold up the sky. There is a hush here that is different from other churches. It is a thick acoustic blanket that absorbs the sound of your footsteps. As you drift through the ambulatory behind the altar, you're walking in the footsteps of monks who chanted here in the 12th century. The shadows play tricks on the eyes, creating a sense of movement in the corners, a feeling that the past is not gone, but merely waiting in the dark. It is a space that invites deep introspection, a stone womb that protects you from the frenetic pace of the present day, holding you in the timeless embrace of the Norman era. Passing out of the heavy, shadowed churchyard, we find ourselves in a narrow lane that feels impossibly old. This is Cloth Fair, a street name that whispers of the medieval textile trade. Here, standing proud and defiant against the march of modernisation, is the oldest house in the City of London, number 41. Visualise the facade of this remarkable survivor. It is a tall, narrow slice of the 17th century, with bay windows that jut out over the pavement as if trying to catch a glimpse of the people passing by below. The walls are not flat. They bow and curve with the weight of time, the timber frame settling comfortably into its foundations. Imagine the leaded glass of the windows, the small diamond-shaped panes distorting the reflection of the street lamp outside. This house was the only one in the area to survive the Great Fire of 1666, protected by the high brick walls of the priory. Think of the life lived inside these walls, the creak of the original floorboards, the warmth of the coal fires that have burned in the hearths for 400 years. It stands as a testament to luck and resilience. To touch the brickwork is to touch a rare continuity, a direct line back to a time when the streets were mud and the nights were truly dark. It is a cosy, crooked sentinel, a house that has slept through wars and revolutions, remaining a warm domestic heart in the centre of the cold stone city. Continuing down the winding path of history, we arrive at the corner where the great devastation of the fire finally breathed its last. We're at the junction of Giltspur Street and Cock Lane, known historically as Pie Corner. High up on the wall of a building tucked away in a niche stands a peculiar and golden figure known as the Golden Boy of Pie Corner. Visualise this small gilded statue. He is a cherubic naked child, pot-bellied and shining, gleaming against the soot-stained brickwork. He's not a grand hero or a king. He's a symbol of a strange old moral. The inscription beneath him claims that the Great Fire began at Pudding Lane and ended at Pie Corner as a punishment for the sin of gluttony. But tonight, look past the moral and see the boy as a beacon. He is covered in gold leaf, radiating a warm, eternal light even in the deepest shadow of the night. There is a softness to his form, a roundness that contrasts with the sharp angles of the city architecture. He represents a peculiar London humour, a way of making sense of tragedy through myth and symbols. He stands there, forever silent, watching the intersection. Imagine the rain washing over his golden skin, the water sliding off the metal, leaving him bright and clean. He is a small golden period at the end of a sentence of destruction, a shiny marker that says, "Here, the fire stopped. Here, the city survived." Turning our gaze from the small golden boy, we are confronted by a vast, sprawling cathedral of iron and pastel paint, the Smithfield Market. This is not a religious site, but a temple of commerce that has operated on this spot for nearly a millennium. Visualise the Victorian Grand Avenue, a majestic covered roadway that cuts through the centre of the market building. The architecture is a marvel of decorative ironwork. Look at the arches painted in shades of violet, cream and turquoise, a surprising confectionery colour palette for a meat market. At this hour, in the deep dream time, the market is suspended between the chaos of the day and the bustle of the early morning. It is a cavernous, echoing space. The tall, louvered roofs are designed to let air circulate, keeping the space cool and fresh. Imagine the sound of your footsteps clicking on the cobblestones of the Grand Avenue. The air is distinct, cool, crisp, and carrying a faint metallic scent. The ornamental cast iron grilles with their intricate floral patterns cast long, lace-like shadows on the walls. It is a place of rhythm and routine, a heart that beats while the rest of the city sleeps. Even when empty, the space feels alive with energy, a grand industrial palace that dignifies the simple act of feeding a city. The vastness of the roof creates a sense of awe, a feeling of being small inside a great, colourful machine that is currently resting, gathering its breath for the dawn. Drifting north from the market, we slip through a quiet gate into a hidden world of monastic peace, the Charter House. This complex of buildings has lived many lives, a burial ground for the Black Death, a Carthusian monastery, a Tudor mansion, and a school. Today, it is an almshouse, a sanctuary for the brothers, a community of elderly men who live here in a community of quiet contemplation. Visualise the inner courtyards at night. The grass is perfectly manicured, a square of velvet green surrounded by ancient stone cloisters. The silence here is absolute, a thick, protected quietude that has been cultivated for 700 years. The stones of the walls are a patchwork of flint, brick and limestone, each material telling a different chapter of the building's history. Imagine the life of a Carthusian monk who once walked these halls, a life of silence, prayer, and solitude. That energy still lingers in the air. The windows of the brothers' rooms glow with a soft, warm light, signalling safety and comfort. It is a village within the city, shut off from the noise of the outside world by high walls. The smell is of old lavender, wet grass, and wood smoke. To be here is to step out of time, to find a place where the values of care and community are preserved in stone, a hidden garden of peace where the weary can rest their heads and let the world turn without them. From the enclosed piece of the monastery, we move back towards the centre of the city, to the grand courtyard of the Guildhall. But we're not looking at the medieval hall itself. We are looking down beneath the pavement. Etched into the stone of the plaza is a large black curve, a line that traces the perimeter of a lost giant. We're standing on top of London's Roman amphitheatre. For centuries, this structure was considered a myth, lost to the mud of history, until it was rediscovered in 1988. Visualize the layers of earth beneath your feet peeling away to reveal the stone walls and the sand arena of Londinium. 7,000 spectators once gathered here, sitting on wooden benches cheering and shouting. Now, in the quiet of the night, the arena sleeps in the cool darkness of the Guildhall Art Gallery basement. Imagine the luminescent ring of green light that now marks the position of the arena walls in the darkness underground. It is a ghostly outline, a digital resurrection of the past. The air down there is climate-controlled, cool and dry, preserving the wooden drains and the rough stone walls. Stand on the black line in the plaza above and feel the vibration of the history beneath your soles. You're standing on the entertainment centre of a fallen empire. The cheers have faded, the gladiators are gone, but the shape of the space remains, a hidden oval of energy that anchors the modern city to its ancient classical roots. From the stone entertainment of the ancients, we travel a short distance to the stone fortress of the moderns. We stand before the windowless curtain walls of the Bank of England. This massive block of Portland stone covering nearly 3.5 acres is known affectionately as the Old Lady of Threadneedle Street. But the true wonder lies deep beneath the pavement. Sink your mind down, through the limestone floors, through the concrete foundations, into the gold vaults. Here, resting on simple blue metal shelves, is roughly 1/5 of the world's gold. Visualize the sight. 400,000 bars of pure 24-carat gold. They do not glitter like jewellery. They have a soft, buttery matte sheen. Each bar weighs exactly 13 kilograms, a dense, heavy concentration of value. The silence in the vaults is profound. There is no dust here. The gold does not degrade, does not rust, does not change. It sits in the cool, still air, waiting. The floor is the natural London clay, which is soft enough to support the immense weight without cracking the building. Imagine the smell. It is odourless, metallic, sterile. There is something deeply hypnotic about this hidden hoard. It is the heavy, silent anchor of the financial world, a sleeping dragon's hoard that stabilises the economy of nations, resting quietly in the dark while the city rushes overhead, unaware of the glowing mountain beneath its feet. Across the busy junction from the silent vault stands a building of classical grace and open commerce, the Royal Exchange. Once the centre of trading where merchants met to do business, it is now a luxury shopping arcade. Visualise the grand portico with its 8 massive Corinthian columns, creating a temple-like entrance that invites you to step out of the rain. Walk into the central courtyard. Once open to the sky, it is now covered by a magnificent glass roof that allows the moonlight to flood the interior. The walls are lined with large, colourful murals depicting the history of London trade. The floor is polished stone, reflecting the soft glow of the uplights. In the centre, where traders once shouted prices, people now sit sipping champagne and coffee. But cast your eyes upward to the very peak of the building, to the weather vane that turns in the night wind. It is not a rooster or an arrow, but a giant golden grasshopper. This is the family crest of Sir Thomas Gresham, the founder of the Exchange. Visualise this golden insect, 11 feet long, perched high above the traffic. It is a whimsical touch on a serious building, a creature of the summer fields watching over the winter of the finance world. It turns silently, catching the light of the moon, a golden guardian of prosperity that has watched the fortunes of the city rise and fall for centuries. Leaving the classical columns of the Exchange, we turn a corner and are confronted by a vision of the future that has landed in the past. We stand before the Lloyd's building, the headquarters of the world's insurance market. This is the inside-out building, a structure where the guts, the elevators, the water pipes, the electrical ducts, are all worn on the exterior, leaving the inside clear and open. Visualize the stainless steel shining in the night. It looks like a giant polished engine, a machine for calculating risk. The exterior elevators are glass capsules, sliding up and down the outside of the building like beads of light. Watch one rise, carrying a solitary cleaner or security guard, a glowing blue box ascending into the darkness. Inside, the heart of the building is the underwriting room, a vast, soaring atrium that rises all the way to the glass roof. In the centre of this modern cathedral of risk hangs a relic of the sea, the lutein bell. Salvaged from a shipwreck in 1859, this bell hangs from a wooden rostrum. Traditionally, it was rung once for bad news, a ship lost at sea, and twice for good news, a ship arriving safely. Now it hangs mostly silent, a heavy bronze memory of the ocean in a room of steel and glass. Imagine the contrast, the sleek, high-tech architecture surrounding this dark, crusted object of maritime history. It is a reminder that despite all our calculations and steel walls, we are still at the mercy of the elements, protected only by the ringing of a bell in the silence. Standing next to the industrial machine of Lloyd's is its smoother, curvier neighbour, 30 St Mary Axe, known to the world as the Gherkin. Visualise this building not as an office tower, but as a sculpture of glass and light. It spirals upward from the street, widening and then tapering again to a point, like a pine cone or a Fabergé egg. The surface is a tessellation of diamond-shaped glass panels. Darker glass spirals up the building, creating the illusion of movement, as if the tower is slowly twisting towards the sky. Stand at the base and look straight up. The curve of the building makes the summit invisible, so it seems to go on forever, disappearing into the stars. The wind flows around its curved surface smoothly, without the turbulence caused by square buildings. It is aerodynamic, sleek, and quiet. Imagine being inside, at the very top, in the lens-like dome that caps the structure. This is the only piece of curved glass on the building. All the others are flat. You're in a glass bubble, 360 degrees of London spread out below you. The city looks like a circuit board of light. You're detached, floating in a spaceship of silence, looking down at the river, the tower, and the bridge. The Gherkin feels organic, a glass plant growing out of the concrete, reaching for the light, offering a perspective of total clarity and calm, a perfect rounded conclusion to the jagged skyline. Drifting from the glass heights towards the water, we approach the most iconic gateway of the city, Tower Bridge. But tonight, we're not just looking at the two great Gothic towers, we're witnessing the magic of the lift. Visualize the moment a tall ship approaches. The road traffic stops, the pedestrian gates close, and a hush falls over the river. Deep inside the towers, the massive engines, once steam, now oil and electricity, begin to turn. Slowly, majestically, the two distinct halves of the road, the bascules, begin to rise. They're perfectly counterbalanced, heavy leaves of steel that lift with a surprising silent grace. They rise until they are almost vertical, saluting the ship that passes beneath. Focus on the colours of the bridge at night. The suspension chains are painted in a bright, cheerful blue and white, illuminated by floodlights that make them glow against the dark sky. The stone of the towers is warm and grey. As the bascules stand open, you can see the underside of the road, a view rarely seen, revealing the heavy steel girders that support the weight of the traffic. It is a moment of mechanical ballet. The river flows uninterrupted, the ship glides through, and then, slowly, the leaves descend again, locking together with a satisfying deep thud that resonates through the bridge structure. It is the city opening its arms, a gesture of welcome and passage that has been performed for over a century, a rhythmic opening and closing that mimics the breath of the metropolis itself. As the great bascules of the bridge settle back into their locked embrace, sealing the road once more, we drift silently along the southern bank of the Thames. Here, moored permanently in the dark, swirling waters, looms a grey mountain of steel, the HMS Belfast. This is a sleeping warrior, a town-class light cruiser that saw the icy waves of the Arctic and the fire of D-Day, now resting peacefully in the heart of the city. Visualize the sheer mass of the ship as you float alongside her hull. The camouflage paint, a patchwork of light and dark greys, breaks up her silhouette against the night sky, making her appear like a phantom island. The river water laps gently against the cold steel plates. Slap, slap, slap. A rhythmic, soothing sound that echoes the heartbeat of the tide. The guns, once deafening, are now elevated in a silent salute, their barrels capped and cold. Imagine walking the teak decks in the moonlight. The wood is scrubbed smooth, pale and ghostly under the stars. The smell here is a unique blend of river brine, old oil and polished brass. It is a museum of stillness. Deep inside the ship, the engines are quiet, the hammocks are empty, and the narrow corridors are filled with a heavy, respectful silence. She's a vessel of history, anchored firmly in the mud, a steel shell protecting the memories of the sailors who once called this floating city their home. Just a short drift from the grey flank of the warship, we glide into a space that feels like a cathedral of commerce, sheltered from the elements. We enter Hayes Galleria. Once a wet dock where tea clippers unloaded their crates from the east, it has been transformed into a covered plaza. Visualize the roof that spans high above you. A magnificent barrel vault of glass and steel, modelled after the great arcades of Milan. The acoustics here are cavernous. Your footsteps on the stone floor create a soft, pleasing echo that rises up to the glass canopy. The dock itself has been filled in, but the memory of the water remains in the kinetic sculpture that dominates the centre of the space. The navigators. Visualize this whimsical bronze ship 60 feet long, seemingly afloat on a sea of invisible waves. It is a steampunk dream of gears, fountains, and fantastical figures, frozen in a moment of exploration. At night, the sculpture is still, but the water jets around it sometimes bubble softly, a reminder of the tea, the spices, and the silks that once flooded through these arches. The Galleria is a warm, enclosed pocket of Victorian grandeur, shielding you from the wind off the river, a place where the ghosts of the tea trade wander quietly beneath the protective curve of the glass sky. Leaving the Victorian arcade, we stumble upon a vessel that seems to have sailed out of a much older, mistier time. Tucked into a small, dry dock surrounded by modern office blocks is the Golden Hinder. This is a perfect reconstruction of the galleon captained by Sir Francis Drake, the first English ship to circumnavigate the globe. The contrast with the HMS Belfast is striking. Here, there is no cold steel, only the warm, organic texture of wood. Visualize the hull, painted in stripes of red and yellow ochre, glowing faintly in the streetlights. The smell is rich and earthy, Stockholm tar, hemp rope, and damp oak. The ship looks incredibly small to have crossed the vast, terrifying oceans of the 16th century. Look at the complex web of rigging that rises into the darkness, a spiderweb of ropes and pulleys that sing softly when the wind blows. The masts creak gently, a sound that speaks of strain and resilience. To stand before the Golden Hind is to touch the age of exploration, to feel the fragility of the wooden shell that carried men off the edge of the known map. It rests here now, a colourful, wooden toy in a canyon of concrete, a reminder of the courage it took to sail into the unknown. From the wooden ship, we wander deeper into the ancient borough of Southwark, seeking the ruins of a lost palace. We find ourselves standing before a single ragged wall of stone and flint, the remains of Winchester Palace. Once the home of the powerful bishops of Winchester, this 12th century grand hall is now a skeleton stripped bare by fire and time, Visualize the centerpiece of this ruin, the great rose window. It is a circle of stone tracery, high up on the wall, like a giant unblinking eye staring at the city. The glass is long gone, shattered centuries ago, so now the window frames the night sky itself. Through the stone petals of the rose, you can see the clouds drifting and the stars twinkling. Vines of ivy climb the rough grey walls, softening the jagged edges of the broken masonry. It is a scene of romantic desolation. The palace was once filled with the richest men in England. Now it is a garden of shadows. Standing in the sunken courtyard, looking up at the empty window, you feel the passage of time not as a destructive force, but as a gentle eraser, stripping away the luxury to leave only the beautiful enduring bones of the architecture. The ancient stones lead us inevitably towards the sensory heart of Southwark, the covered cavern of Borough Market. By day, this is a cacophony of shouting traders and sizzling pans, but at night it is a temple of iron and shadow. Visualize the roof structure, a complex lattice of green-painted iron girders and glass that creates a greenhouse effect, trapping the day's warmth. As you walk through the empty aisles, the silence is thick and heavy. The stalls are packed away, leaving only the bare wooden trestle tables and the faint lingering aromas of the day's bounty. Breathe in. The air still holds the ghost scents of truffle oil, aged Comte cheese, freshly baked sourdough, and roasting coffee beans. It is a complex, savoury perfume that comforts the deepest part of the brain. Overhead, the railway viaduct cuts through the market. Every few minutes a train rumbles over the bridge, kadump, 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 a low rhythmic vibration that shakes the dust from the girders. It is a comforting industrial lullaby. The market at night feels like a pantry for the giant city, a place of abundance resting in the dark, waiting to feed the waking world. Drifting out of the market, we turn down a side street to find a secret courtyard that feels like a portal to the days of Charles Dickens. We have arrived at the George Inn. This is London's last remaining galleried coaching inn, a structure that has welcomed weary travellers since the medieval era. Visualise the long timber frame facade painted in white and black. 2 levels of wooden galleries run the length of the building, with balustrades where travellers once stood to watch plays performed in the courtyard below. The uneven cobblestones of the yard are slick with dampness, reflecting the warm yellow glow of the lanterns hanging from the beams. The windows are small and multi-paned, glowing with an inviting amber light that suggests a roaring fire inside. It is a place of supreme coziness. You can almost hear the clip-clop of hooves and the rattle of carriage wheels on the stones. The George is a hug in architectural form, a building designed to offer shelter, ale, and a bed to the exhausted. It stands wrapped in its own shadows, a wooden relic of hospitality that has refused to change, offering a timeless sanctuary from the cold night air. Leaving the warmth of the inn, we wander to a place of poignant, quiet remembrance on Red Cross Way. We stand before the iron gates of the Crossbones graveyard. For centuries, this was the unconsecrated burial ground for the outcast dead, the poor, the workers, and the women of the night who were denied a church burial. But this is not a place of horror. It has been reclaimed as a garden of empathy. Visualize the heavy iron gates, which are completely covered in thousands of colourful ribbons, feathers, and trinkets tied there by modern visitors. In the gentle breeze of the night, these ribbons flutter and dance, a kaleidoscope of silk and satin in every colour imaginable. It creates a soft, rustling sound like the whispering of 1,000 voices. Each ribbon represents a wish, a prayer, or a memory for someone lost and forgotten. The gates have become a shrine to the invisible people of the city. Behind the gates, the garden is wild and green, a protected space of wildflowers and ivy. To stand here is to feel a wave of collective compassion. It is a place where the city remembers its forgotten children, wrapping their memory in bright colours and letting them sleep in peace under the blanket of the wild garden. From the intimate garden of the outcasts, we move towards the river again, approaching a monolith of immense power and scale. We stand at the foot of the Tate Modern, housed in the former Bankside Power Station. The building is a fortress of dark brick, a cathedral of electricity turned into a cathedral of art. We drift through the doors and enter the turbine hall. Visualize the sheer scale of this space. It is vast, echoing and industrial, stretching out like the nave of a giant's church. The turbines are gone, leaving behind a void that feels limitless. The floor slopes gently downwards, pulling you into the depths of the building. The air is cool and still, smelling of concrete and dust. A single footstep here creates a sound that travels for seconds, bouncing off the steel girders high above. The light filters down from the clerestory windows, casting long geometric blocks of illumination on the grey floor. It is a space that makes you feel small, but in a liberating way. There is no clutter here, only volume. It is a sanctuary of emptiness, a place where your thoughts can expand to fill the room, floating up into the dark industrial rafters. Exiting the colossal hall, we step out onto the riverbank and are met by a blade of light slicing across the dark water. This is the Millennium Bridge. Unlike the heavy stone and steel of the other bridges we have visited, this is a ribbon of aluminum and steel, sleek, slender and futuristic. Visualize walking out onto the suspension deck. The cables are low, below eye level, so there's nothing between you and the panoramic view of the city. The floor of the bridge is illuminated from beneath, glowing with a soft white luminescence that guides your path. It feels as though you're walking on a beam of pure light, hovering over the black churning river. Ahead of you, perfectly framed by the bridge's supports, rises the illuminated dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. The bridge was nicknamed the Wobbly Bridge when it opened, and although it is stable now, it still possesses a lively, flexible quality. It feels light, airy, almost organic. You're suspended between the spiritual grandeur of the cathedral ahead and the industrial might of the power station behind, walking the tightrope of the present moment, surrounded by the cool, fresh wind of the Thames. As we reach the northern bank, we turn slightly to find a hidden literary shelter beneath the concrete span of Waterloo Bridge. This is the South Bank Book Market. Even when the sellers have gone home, the tables remain, covered in tarpaulins, sheltered by the massive concrete umbrella of the bridge above. Visualize this space. A long open-air corridor protected from the rain, smelling of old paper, river damp and concrete. The bridge overhead acts as a massive sounding board, amplifying the sounds of the river, the hoot of a tugboat, the cry of a gull. It is a place where millions of stories have been bought and sold. Imagine the rows of second-hand books sleeping under their covers, Penguin classics with orange spines, heavy art books, worn paperbacks with creased corners. They are waiting for the morning browsers. The columns of the bridge are rugged and stained with the patina of the city, but the space beneath is intimate. It is a sanctuary for the mind, a place where words are the currency. Standing here, you feel the protective weight of the bridge shielding the fragile paper of the books, a concrete guardian watching over the sleeping stories of the world. Emerging from the sheltered quiet of the book market, we ascend the stone stairs to stand upon the very spine of the structure that protected those sleeping stories. We find ourselves walking across Waterloo Bridge. While the view from here is widely considered the finest in the city, a panoramic embrace of the bend in the river, it is the stone beneath your feet that holds a secret, softer history. This is known affectionately as the Ladies' Bridge. Visualize the construction of this bridge during the dark days of the Second World War. With the men away fighting, it was the hands of thousands of women that poured the concrete, welded the steel, and laid the pale Portland stone. Run your mind's hand over the balustrade. The stone is self-cleaning, designed to remain white and pristine against the soot of the city, a feature that gives the bridge a ghostly, luminous quality in the moonlight. Because it was built by women, folklore says it is the only bridge in London that was completed on time and under budget. It feels different from the heavy, masculine iron of the other crossings. It is slender, elegant, and resilient. Standing in the centre, you are suspended on a ribbon of white stone, held up by the strength of the women of the past, looking out at the city they helped to build. The river wind here is fresh and cleansing, blowing away the cobwebs of the mind as you stand on this monument to unsung heroines, a bridge of grace spanning the dark tidal water. From the breezy heights of the river crossing we drift inland, carried by the faint phantom sound of an area. We find ourselves in the cobbled piazza of Covent Garden. Once a fruit and vegetable garden for the monks of Westminster, it is now a temple of performance. But tonight, the buskers and the crowds are gone. We are alone in the apple market. Visualize the roof above you, a soaring canopy of pale green iron and glass that shelters the cobblestones. The acoustics in this space are accidental perfection. Because the market is a semi-enclosed trench, it captures sound and amplifies it, turning the stone walls into a natural cathedral. Imagine a single soprano singing here in the silence of the night. Her voice rises, hitting the glass roof, and cascades down like a shower of silver rain. The air is cool and still, smelling faintly of the stone and the distant memory of apples and crushed flowers. The empty stalls with their painted iron frames stand like silent sentinels. There is a theatrical magic here. The space feels like a stage set waiting for the actors to arrive. It is a piazza in the truest sense, a breathing space in the dense city where the air feels lighter, filled with the echo of music and the promise of art. Connecting the bustling market to the world of high art is a structure of breathtaking delicacy. Look upwards, bridging the gap between the Royal Ballet School and the Royal Opera House. You will see the Bridge of Aspiration. This is not a bridge for cars or pedestrians, but a twisting tunnel of light for dancers. Visualize its form, a concertina of 23 square frames, each one rotated slightly in relation to the next, creating a fluid, spiralling tunnel that mimics the grace of a pirouette. It floats high above Floral Street, a glowing spine of glass and aluminum. Imagine being inside it, walking from the practice rooms to the stage. The floor is not flat but stepped, a gentle ascent towards the limelight. It is a physical manifestation of a dream, the journey from the discipline of the classroom to the glory of the performance. At night, lit from within, it looks like a strand of DNA or a beam of captured starlight twisting in the darkness. It is a sealed, hermetic passage, floating above the mundane street, a secret corridor where only those who have dedicated their lives to the art of movement may tread. Leaving the floating spiral of the dancers, we wander through the quiet, narrow streets until we reach a point of perfect radial symmetry. 7 dials. Here, 7 streets converge on a single central point, like the spokes of a great wheel or the rays of a star. In the centre of this junction stands a tall Doric pillar topped with a sundial. Visualize the geometry of this place. No matter which of the 7 streets you stand in, your eye is drawn to the pillar. It acts as a magnetic north for the neighbourhood. The pillar itself is a beautiful piece of masonry, crowned with 6 sundial faces. The 7th dial is actually the column itself, casting its shadow upon the ground. In the quiet of the night, this area feels like a giant clock face. You're standing in the centre of time. The surrounding buildings are tall, brick townhouses that seem to lean in, creating a cosy enclosed atmosphere. The layout was designed to maximise the number of houses that could face the street, but the effect is disorienting in a delightful way. It is a labyrinth where all paths lead to the centre, a place to stand still and let the world revolve around you, guided by the silent shadow of the pillar under the moon. A short walk from the radial confusion of the dials brings us to a shop that claims to contain the entire world within its walls. We stand before the grand Edwardian windows of Stanford's on Mercer Street, the world's leading map and travel bookshop. But we do not need to enter to feel the magic. We can feel it through the soles of our feet. Visualize the floor of the shop. It is not carpet or wood, but a giant laminated map of the world. In the dream, the glass doors drift open and you step inside. You take one step and cross the Atlantic Ocean. Another step and you are standing on the peaks of the Himalayas. The scale is mesmerizing. You can trace the blue veins of the Amazon River with your toe. You can stand like a giant over the vast expanse of the Pacific. The air here smells of paper, ink, and adventure. It is a place of infinite possibility, where the globe is flattened and brought down to a human scale. Maps are dreams made visible, promises of journeys to come. Standing here, in the silence of the shelves, surrounded by rolled charts and atlases, you feel a connection to every explorer who ever charted a course. The world is beneath your feet, stable and charted, a reminder that no matter how far you drift, there is always a map to bring you home. Using the internal compass set by the maps, we drift south, passing through the grand archways of Trafalgar Square and finding ourselves at the entrance to the Royal Ceremonial Path, the Mall. This is not just a road, it is a red carpet made of asphalt. Visualize the surface of the road. It is coloured with a specific iron oxide pigment to mimic the appearance of a red carpet, creating a sense of occasion for every vehicle that travels upon it. The road stretches out before you, wide and straight, flanked by double rows of majestic plane trees. These trees are the lungs of the royal park, their leaves broad and flat, whispering in the night breeze. At the far end, glowing like a pearl in the distance, is Buckingham Palace. But do not focus on the destination, focus on the journey. Walking down the centre of this empty red road in the moonlight feels regal. The Union Jacks hanging from the standards on either side are limp and still. The city noise is muffled by the parkland on either side. It is a corridor of power and pageantry, currently sleeping. The red path invites you to walk with your head high, moving slowly and deliberately towards the heart of the monarchy, cushioned by the coloured ground and guarded by the silent leafy sentinels. At the eastern end of this red road, acting as the grand gatekeeper between the royal world and the civilian city, stands the curved facade of Admiralty Arch. It is a massive concave wall of Portland stone, a triumph of Edwardian Baroque architecture. Visualize the three great arches, the outer two for traffic, the central one reserved traditionally for the monarch. But hidden within this monumental grandeur is a tiny whimsical detail that brings the scale back down to the human level. Drift close to the wall of the northernmost arch. There, at about head height, protruding from the smooth stone, is a human nose. It is small, plaster pink, and perfectly formed. Legend says it was placed there to mock Napoleon, or perhaps the Duke of Wellington, positioned at such a height that cavalry troops riding through could tweak it for luck. Run your mind's finger over this small, odd bump in the stone. It is a secret handshake, a piece of graffiti carved into the very architecture of the state. It reminds us that even in the most serious of places there is room for a joke, a flaw, a human touch. The arch looms above, heavy and imposing, but the nose remains a tiny, silent rebellion, waiting to be discovered by those who look closely in the dark. Passing through the arch, we enter the vast, open parade ground of Horse Guards Parade. This is a sea of gravel and sand, bordered by the elegant white stone buildings of the household cavalry. The space is immense, feeling like a desert floor in the middle of the city. Visualize the texture of the gravel crunching softly beneath your boots, a distinct dry sound that echoes off the low buildings. In the centre, the space is empty, windswept, and clean, waiting for the pomp of the next ceremony. But lift your eyes to the clock tower above the archway. This clock has a strange anomaly. On the face, at the position of 2 o'clock, there is a black stain. It is not dirt, it is a permanent mark. It marks the hour that King Charles III was executed just outside the banqueting house nearby. The time of the king's death is frozen in a shadow on the clock face. It is a memento mori high above the parade ground, a dark spot on the white circle of time. The wind blows across the open square, swirling the dust, carrying the weight of history. The space feels solemn, dignified, and incredibly spacious. A blank canvas of sand where the ghosts of soldiers march in perfect silence. From the memory of the cavalry, we follow the scent of leather and hay to the home of the living horses, the Royal Mews. Tucked behind high walls near the palace, this is a working village of stables that feels like a slice of the countryside. Visualize the interior of the stables at night. The stalls are lined with polished wood and brass, glowing under the warm amber lights. The air is thick, sweet, and comforting. The primal smell of straw, clean horsehair, and saddle soap. Here sleep the Windsor Greys and the Cleveland Bays, the horses that pull the Queen's carriages. Imagine the sound of a heavy hoof shifting in the straw, or the soft, rhythmic breathing of a large animal in deep sleep. In the carriage house nearby sits the Gold State coach. It is a fantastical object, 4 tons of gilded wood, covered in tritons and cherubs. It is so heavy it can only move at a walking pace, but tonight it is still. The gold glimmers in the shadows. The Mews is a place of quiet service and animal warmth. It grounds the grandeur of the monarchy in the simple biological reality of caring for beasts. It is a warm, breathing pocket of life where the rhythm is set not by a clock, but by the feeding and grooming of the horses. Leaving the stables, we wander up St James's Street to a storefront that looks like a portal to the 18th century. We stand before the dark, wooden facade of Berry Brothers and Rudd, the oldest wine merchant in Britain. The shop front has barely changed since 1698. Visualize pushing open the tall black doors. You step onto a floor that is famously uneven, sloping and creaking with age. The wood is dark, polished by 3 centuries of customers. The air is cool and smells of cork, old oak barrels, and the rich, dusty scent of vintage claret. In the centre of the room hang the giant coffee scales. Before they sold wine, they sold coffee, and for generations, fashionable Londoners came here to be weighed. Giant leather-bound ledgers on the shelves record the weights of Lord Byron, Beau Brummel, and Pitt the Younger. Imagine sitting on the large wooden pan of the scales, the brass weights clinking softly as they balance. Beneath your feet lie cellars that stretch for acres under London, holding bottles covered in the dust of ages. The silence here is respectful and deep, the silence of wine slowly maturing in the dark. It is a shop that refuses to rush, a place where time is measured in vintages and the slow, steady settling of the wooden floorboards. From the sloping, creaking wooden floors of that ancient merchant's house, we take one final deep step, not forward, but downward, sinking through the very floorboards of reality to uncover the final, silent secret of this metropolis. It is a secret held not by a building or a book, but by the earth itself. We have walked the streets, climbed the towers, and sailed the river. But the profound truth of London is that the city you see is merely the latest skin on a body that has been growing for 2 millennia. We are speaking of the rising ground. Visualize the ground beneath your feet as a geological layer cake of civilization. Since the Romans first arrived, the street level of the city has risen by an average of 20 feet, over 6 meters. This means that when you walk the modern pavement, you are literally walking on the rooftops of the deep past. Beneath the soles of your shoes lies the debris of the Victorian era, the coal dust, the lost coins, the horseshoes. Beneath that lies the ash of the Great Fire, a thick black seam of carbon that marks the year 1666. Deeper still are the medieval cobbles, the Saxon timber, and finally, resting at the very bottom, the red tiles of Roman Londinium. To understand this is to change your relationship with gravity. You're not standing on the earth. You're floating on a raft of history, held up by the compressed memories of millions of lives. Every time you take a step, you're supported by the structures of the ancestors. The sunken baths, the buried rivers, the deep vaults. They did not sink. The city rose around them, growing upward like a coral reef, building on its own bones. Imagine this vertical history as a form of cushioning. The noise of the battles, the shouts of the markets, the clip-clop of the horses from days gone by, they're all trapped in the soil beneath you, muffled by the clay and the stone, transformed into a silent, supportive foundation. You're never alone in London. You are held aloft by the grand, physical accumulation of time. The city is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over again and again, but the old words are never truly erased. They are simply sleeping in the dark, forming the bedrock of the dream you're walking through tonight. And now the journey through the layers of time begins to slow. The golden boy, the silver dragons, the green gardens, and the blue river, they all begin to soften, their edges blurring like watercolour paint on wet paper. You have collected these fragments of the city, these 101 glowing stones of knowledge, and placed them into the velvet pocket of your mind. They are yours now, not to study, but to hold. Visualize the great city from high above one last time. The lights are dimming, turning from bright electric sparks into soft glowing embers. The roar of the traffic fades into a gentle rhythmic hum, sounding like the ocean inside a seashell. The River Thames continues its silent dark slide towards the sea, carrying with it all the tension, all the worry, all the noise, washing it away into the vast cleansing salt of the deep ocean. You're drifting away from the streets, floating higher and higher into the cool, quiet air of the upper atmosphere. The map of the city becomes a blur of soft gold and deep indigo. There is nothing left to explore, nothing left to see. The gates of the tower are locked, the bridges are still, the parks are empty, save for the sleeping deer and the whispering leaves. Feel the heaviness in your limbs, a pleasant warm weight that pulls you down into the mattress, anchoring you to your own rest. Your breath is slow and steady, matching the tide of the distant river. The history is safe, the stories are told, the city sleeps, and so must you. Let the darkness wrap around you like a heavy wool coat, protecting you, warming you, silencing the world. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.